Hey.
Happy Boxing Day. That's what today is.
Oh. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I was gonna say Merry belated Christmas, but there's an actual name for today, so
It's Boxing Day.
it
That's
is
right.
Boxing Day.
Well,
Yes.
we're not talking about boxing. We're talking about wrestling.
Yeah, we are.
Merry Christmas to you, Pat.
Merry Christmas, Mike.
You're wearing
Nice to see you.
the flag of one of my favorite wrestlers, who has one of my favorite promos. Um, when when the British Bulldog let Repo Man know that he had been fooled. I don't know if you're aware of this one, but it's one of my favorites.
No, but I'd love the premise already. This
They
feels like
say that I'm facing the
1992.
Repo Man. Well, you tried to steal my car. Well, guess what? It wasn't even my car. It was a rental. Like that was his thing. So
Oh,
like now
Davy
whenever
boy.
I see like some sort of incident involving a car, I just immediately go, it wasn't even my
Wasn't
car.
even my car.
It was a rental.
Oh, Davy boy.
What a year. What a year. And that is
19
what we are here to talk about, the year of 2021 in our beloved sacred sport of professional wrestling.
Indeed.
What a year it was too. It is a weird way kind of the return of wrestling, especially
Yeah.
to live capacity crowds.
Yeah, it was certainly my first live shows in a couple of years.
How did that feel? Just being in a live
It
atmosphere again
was
in general.
it was amazing. There was just like they talk about it a little bit on AEW Unrestricted, the podcast. But when I went to we've talked about this on the show before, but I went to the 3 Chicago shows from AEW in September. That was my first time being back in an arena, and just like the feeling of like catharsis
I'm
of being
sure.
able to be around. I mean, everybody was masked, everybody was being safe, but like the pop that Bryce Remsburg got when he came out to officiate the first dark match before Dynamite, just like, oh my god, we're about to see wrestling.
Yeah.
And it didn't. I mean, I was those were the only 3 shows I saw live in person this year, because I'm still not super comfortable with
Right,
going
right.
afterwards. I just didn't want to miss those, but that feeling never went away for the 5 days that I was in Chicago watching wrestling. It was
5
just
days in a row. Like you really got a fix.
I did. I mean, I probably saw more live wrestling over the course of that weekend than I had combined. Well, I mean, for sure combined in 2020. But yeah, it was probably comparable to the previous 2-ish years or so, over the course of 5 days.
And we feast on this stuff. Like
We do.
this is our sustenance in terms of entertainment.
Well, especially now,
Yeah,
now that we're,
stuck inside.
well, we're stuck inside, but I mean, now that we're doing the show
Well,
and
that too,
we're
yeah.
not just watching, the mainstream American stuff.
We
I'm
are
having to do
absorbing.
research. I'm having to do research on, wrestlers I'd never heard of before. I'm watching, Gato move matches with
Yeah.
Bali Yanaki and Mei Saruga, just to, so that I kind of know what I'm
We have
talking about.
expanded our pro wrestling palette, as it were.
Yeah.
And the like there were 15, obviously the big promotions with AEW and WWE, but also, if as we are both citing the same Wikipedia resource for our year in review knowledge, just to go about like the biggest comeback shows, there was AAA, AEW, All Japan, CMLL, DDT, Dragon Gate, MLW, GLEAT, which is a new promotion that I am just learning about for myself. Impact Wrestling, New Japan, NWA, Ring of Honor had an interesting year. Zero
Indeed.
One, Pro Wrestling Noah, and then of course a little small show you may have heard of called World Wrestling Entertainment, I believe.
Huh, I don't think it'll ever catch on.
Yeah. Well, it's they're catching on is something that gimmicks tend to either do and then they don't get it, or don't and then shoved down our throats, and that is what became NXT 2.0.
Yep.
You and I watched that together. We were chatting about how insane this brand new version of what is clearly a reversion back to developmental.
Yes.
And
yeah, it is very
clearly
much
signified.
FCW. It's more FCW 2.0
Oh,
than
very
NXT
much.
2.0.
And it clearly signified the end of the Wednesday Night War. Oh, what a
Mhm.
war it was.
Was it though?
Was it? Yeah. Was it? Like, was it really? You know, there have been some crossover was definitely the big thing for wrestling this year. So many the journeyman wrestler became a kind of a thing again, with talent realizing, hey, I don't have to be in just one show.
That's right.
I can expand my brand to not only be on a major televised wrestling promotion, but also the big indie markets, and get my name out there to places that wouldn't otherwise, you know, see me on a regular basis. And yeah, it's, I mean, GCW was a big part of that this year, uh,
Absolutely.
getting such huge buzz. And then, you know, just a lot of big changes in the idea of what does it mean to be an independent contractor.
Mhm.
Some were clearly realizing it doesn't mean what it actually means at all.
Yeah.
And then an entire roster's worth of people were fired.
80. What did we decide?
I think
83.
it
And
got
that
up
was
to 80. Yeah.
well, that was before the Jeff Hardy news. So
Right.
we're at like 84 or 85 now, I think.
And you know, not not without its own controversies in general, but I mean, there's like, you know, there's ways of business being done, and then, you know, there's different ways of talent all of a sudden getting notified that they're no longer going to have a job in the future.
Mhm.
uh and then Ring of Honor decides, we're just gonna stop for a while.
Yeah.
Now, I read
We were on a
I read
break.
Joe Koff's interview recently talking about, like, yes, if it was independently owned by me, I'd still be running the show. Like, it would
Mhm.
still be going on. But he obviously answers to a
He
lot of
answers.
different people with
Yeah.
Sinclair Broadcasting and everything. So they have to look at it from a bottom line perspective.
Mhm.
And yeah, I get that. I get that. Um it's very odd to see um it just kind of like, I'm all for pro wrestling having seasons, as it were, or
Mhm.
kind of like rotating in and out rosters so that people can have breaks and that focus can be on different people. You know, like a sport does.
Yeah.
You know, AEW has been doing that pretty well with, you know, you see guys come in, get a focus for a bit, come out, get some time off, yeah,
Mhm.
and hopefully not work themselves to death, or get overexposed and kind of like lose their brand
Yep.
flavor.
Cody.
Um, we'll get to Cody.
Sorry. Had a thing in my throat.
We'll get to Cody, believe me,
And
because that is a whole
new.
other thing. Um, but yeah, there is just been I feel like the way that pro wrestling is being looked at, how you do it, with this mindset of there is only one way to do pro wrestling, and that is always the way it shall be done,
Mhm.
is really like being taken into the hands of people who are like, no, it doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
So let's try and do something so that we can do this for a long time and not a short time. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been an interesting year.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, it started as a necessity during the pandemic.
Absolutely.
And it started as a joke, but I don't think it can be understated how important opening the forbidden door was
Oh
to the
yeah.
state of professional wrestling. Because, like you say, it had been a certain way for 30 years,
Yeah.
going back to the the NWA versus WWF, in the late 80s, early 90s. You were I mean, there were still independent promotions, but the goal was always you got yourself on
You went to the
NWA or
market leader,
WCW,
right?
or you went to the WWF.
Yeah.
And sometimes you would jump back and forth between the two, but that was always the ultimate goal. Whereas over the course of the last few years, and you know, obviously, I'm not going to give AEW total credit for this because it was happening before that. Kenny and the Bucks, and you know, all of the elite guys and a handful of the top independent stars had showed there was money to be made as a headliner indie guy. But now you're seeing the same wrestlers on Impact in Japan, and I mean, Chaos is on American television now.
Yeah.
Like, you know, Rocky Romero, Suzuki had a pay-per-view match.
The acknowledgement of other wrestling promotions in general
Yes.
by one is like a weird, almost like a weird thing now, but it's normal, as it should be, because wrestlers work other worlds. Now, I understand if you're doing it for purposely for your storyline and for your television, like when Lucha Underground did, even though they still kind of like did a little bit of like nods to acknowledging the history. It was just like, but in this world, this is who they are.
Right.
And I get that if that's what you're establishing, if that's what you're trying to do. But when you're presenting, like, you know, real people seeing this real thing happening in front of them in real time, it's kind of hard to just be like, oh, who's that guy?
Yeah. This is the absolute apex pinnacle of the industry. Everybody who's anybody wants to be here and wants to be the top guy. So we only go out and get the best and the brightest. But who is that?
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't work like that.
No.
Now AEW has not been without its issues. Italicized the debut of the Butcher and the Blade.
Yeah, there was a little bit of
there were some growing pains in the early days.
Excalibur, like, taking the notion of, well, we don't want to treat our audiences like idiots a little too far, because I barely knew who that tag team was. Like, I follow enough indie wrestling to capture some guys, but I was like, okay, I may recognize them.
Right.
But
I know
like,
the Blade because I knew, you know, Pepper Parks, and
right.
you know, I had seen him work before.
But like, why are we acting like it's, you know, Hall and Nash invading?
Or CM Punk.
Yeah, it's like
Bryan Danielson.
And that's the other thing. The idea of you know, the weight that gets carried onto a name itself. Chicago sold out based on a rumor.
Yes.
There wasn't even one literal mention of CM Punk at all.
Nope.
There were hints, obviously. There were little, you know, like, keep your eye open Easter eggs if you were really paying attention and if you watched all of the programming.
Yes.
But not one at all blatant mention of it.
Nope.
Just the idea that it was a possibility, and it sold out. And I think CM Punk's return to pro wrestling is clearly the biggest story of the year.
I would agree. 100%.
To come back from 8 years after promising I will never do this again because I hate it, and then find somebody basically making a show good enough to be like, well, you know, maybe I'll give it a second shot.
Right.
And I mean, it's been a very, like, a year of things that I didn't think would happen have been happening. I have seen amazing top tier talents make real great work out of their indie careers. I mean, who would have thought that one of the biggest heels of the year would be Matt Cardona?
Yes.
Proclaiming himself to be king of the death match, embracing the anti-WWE sentiment that just it embodies him, and he knows it. I mean, it's not like he's like, well, I'm not that guy. Like, he knows what people think when they see him.
Yeah.
And he's smart to get people to pay money to watch him get his ass kicked.
It's a very old school heel.
It's a carny trick.
It's a carny trick. He's Andy Kaufman.
Yeah. All your favorite wrestlers, folks, are carnies. Okay. All the ones that you love the most, they are the ones who are working you the most.
Especially
and all the ones that you hate the most.
Yeah.
for good reasons, not for your weird, stupid reasons.
Right? Yeah, or your perfectly valid ones,
Or your
like
perfectly
Hulk
valid
Hogan.
ones.
Like,
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, that's what I mean by the good reasons. I don't mean like,
yeah,
somebody
Y-
gets kicked out from a stupid sign.
not somebody
Like
caring.
that
Yeah.
screw those people.
Yeah, that guy can
No
that guy
time,
can burn.
no time for you.
Nope.
Um,
Nope.
but like the crossover stuff that's been just happening. I mean, it used to be this way all the time. That's what a lot of people forget.
Mhm.
Is we're of the like youngest of the generation that knows the end of the 80s into the 90s transition era of territories
Yep.
into fully televised shows. Like we caught like the tail end of those years, but we're
Yeah.
still like aware that you could see at a local show depending, like Tully Blanchard defending his television title at some
Yeah.
point. It wasn't uncommon to
Nope.
see, because that's how it was. It was literally territories. If it was like seeing an American division team face off against a National League. Uh
Right. Mhm.
and it's coming back to a degree where you're like, I mean, take for instance now Terminus announcing that the Ring of Honor television world championship, currently now held by, still being held by Bandito, even though there is a follow-up one that Jonathan Gresham won because
Mhm.
Bandito unfortunately could not say. It's a whole thing. But
Yeah,
even then,
it's like the King of Pro Wrestling thing.
yeah,
Like he has it, but this
but it's
guy's
not,
defending
yeah.
it. Yeah.
And Gresham is, though, defending that ROH title at Impact,
Yep.
uh against Chris Sabin. And then you see, Kenny Omega winning the AEW championship and saying he's taking it to Impact, which was insane. Us seeing Kenta show up to get some revenge on Moxley for the New Japan United States Championship, the
Mhm.
IWGP United States Championship. So many letters in titles. There's just,
So many letters. Too
but
many letters.
also like hearing about shows like Stardom, like Crash, like
Mhm.
even the AAA shows getting exposure, like MLW showing up as kind
Yeah.
of this almost supplement of what Ring of Honor was at one point. And it was really good. It's been really good, rather, to see more wrestling in ways that we haven't in such a long time.
100%.
But what would say is, what would you think is like your big, well, I know that we have like stuff that we voted on too, or we have people that voted for, but like what would you say is your top 5, like it doesn't have to be in a particular order, but like 5 standout moments of the year for you? We'll start there and then we'll go kind of like a through the year type deal.
Yeah. The return and rise of Punk is if I were to rank them, would be far and away number one. Like
Yeah,
that's just that
no
is
question. Yeah.
the news story of the year. The return of live audiences.
Mhm.
Those first shows outside of Daly's Place for AEW, outside of the Thunderdome for WWE, outside of the Capitol Wrestling Center.
Oof.
Just the return of live audiences, probably too early, but
Yeah, that's debatable.
it's at 800,000 deaths now.
Hmm.
But that I mean that honestly kind of changed the industry again.
Oh yeah.
The the number of moments that we wish we could have seen in front of live audiences over the last couple of years,
Oh
now we're
yeah.
getting to see them in front of live audiences. And to WWE's credit, which is not a phrase you'll hear me say a lot on this episode, they have done a pretty solid job of returning the focus to the fans. With, I mean, one, they gave us something we've been asking for how many years, which is Roman Reigns as a dominant heel
Yeah.
champion.
Yeah,
Like,
that
and
has probably been the best part of WWE.
yeah,
Like, for
so
the better
that
part of this year, that has been the one thing that has actually kept my interest going
mhm,
back, other than, which is the business model they do sell is, um, not selling matches, but selling the brand of the
brand.
show.
Mhm.
But yeah, because
Yeah.
Heyman's best stuff has always been when he's behind a very good persona that he can get behind.
Yeah. So, and honestly, that kind of ties into Roman as champion would be also on my top 5. Just they finally, after almost a decade, figured out how Roman Reigns works.
Yeah,
Um,
and he's a cool guy.
he's
Like
a
that's
cool
all it
guy.
took. Is like
Yeah.
he's a cool dude, and now I'm over here.
Oh, look at that.
But yeah, he's always just been a cool guy, and it's like,
Yeah.
why not just let him be a cool guy?
I mean, in all honesty, he's kind of this generation's Kevin Nash, except he can work.
Dude, I have always thought of him that way. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, he's no, when I say
The
he
top
can
5
work,
moves of Kevin Nash. Hair flip,
yeah, hair
big boot, squisher. I
Squisher.
still don't know what that is, but I want to know so bad. Kevin Nash, what is the squisher?
What is it? So what have I got? The return of crowds, Punk, Roman Reigns. The rise of the Indies has been a huge one, whether it's the
Yes.
Forbidden Door or whether it's even just like people. And I don't know if this is people like I don't know the psychology behind it. If it's burnout from WWE, if it's interest in other promotions now that the Forbidden Door is open, or whether it's just a natural evolution of the business. But we're starting to see, we were talking about Stardom and Shine and Shimmer. Like there's a whole there's an actual women's revolution happening right now,
folks,
in the world of professional wrestling.
You need to pay attention.
But then, and even outside of that, there's, you mentioned Crash, and we talked a little bit about Gato Move earlier.
Right.
There's, there are so many great, we've talked frequently, a little jokingly, but like DDT and, some of these not massive promotions.
Very niche promotions.
Yeah. But that are doing, buku business right now,
dude,
because
Frontier
there is a market.
Martial Arts Wrestling decided to just become all explosive death matches.
Yes,
that's their entire show.
Yes,
now.
They did.
FMW, Frontier Martial Arts Wrestling Explosion. That's it. That's all they do is exploding death matches.
Yep. And somewhere out there, Atsushi Onita is smiling.
Oh yeah.
There
was a match I saw where the explosion was triggered by a missile that was activated from one of the ring posts.
Oh my goodness.
I think like it didn't work like the first couple of times, but when it finally did, it literally looked like a rocket had been fired. It was like one of those fireworks that like lights down the string. And it just
the Dudley Boys entrance.
Yeah, it was amazing when it worked. That's the funny thing about, we did find out that sometimes good intent, like ideas don't always go as intended. AEW obviously had 2 big moments.
Yeah.
One, they turned into a great storyline that brought about the rise of Eddie Kingston. And the other was just kind of like, we're going to make sure we don't shoot from those angles anymore.
yeah. That was more of a production error than anything else. Well, I guess both of them were, but in very different ways.
I would say definitely, for me, obviously, it's like Punk coming back, seeing Danielson having first of all, for me, it's like the return of Bryan Danielson.
Yes.
I've
not just
always been such a huge fan of his, and I've been waiting for this side of him to show up in wrestling again.
And he had a decent heel run in WWE.
Oh, for sure.
He was doing the green champion thing.
Absolutely.
That was still good work, but it wasn't the American Dragon, which is what we all wanted to see when he got signed.
Daniel Bryan was the real life Bryan Danielson, knowing how to make the most out of what that company would allow him to do. Bryan Danielson in AEW is him being the wrestler he has wanted to be for the last several years. I will say that I also enjoy Xavier Woods living his best life, being one of the rare guys in this industry to have his cake and eat it too, for real.
Yes.
Like he got to be king of the ring, and it was a lifelong dream. The guy has dreams and goals that are just like, it's the stuff that you play out with your action figures when you're younger, and you're like,
Mhm.
oh, now I get to do it. I mean, he's on G4. He's got still his successful video game channels, which I didn't know is actually was WWE produced this whole time. I thought he started that on his own. Turns out that was like with them. Who
Yeah,
knew?
I thought the same thing. I thought it was like Adam Cole
Yeah.
or Tyler Breeze's channels where it was something they were doing on the side. But no, apparently, yeah, it's a legit WWE production.
And that's the other thing. See, I'm excited to see wrestlers being able to have lives outside of wrestling and still, but because, you know, I don't ever like to see the thing that people love take the life out of them when
Mhm.
when they've been working so hard to just make it their life.
Yeah,
Um, there are a lot of wrestlers that I'm glad to see, emerge into spotlight. Eddie Kingston being like number one
yeah.
personally. Uh, if you've not read any of his
Oh my god,
read his article that he wrote
the
recently
piece
about
for the Players
the
Tribune,
Players Tribune.
so good.
Watch any promo he has ever done.
True. Yes.
uh just the man is like legit. He is the most legit real man in or real just real
Mhm.
period. Like I have worked with him in the past in just in fleeting moments of being able to have be ring announcing for him or interviewing him, and I've always just like admired at how much he cares about what he does
Mhm.
and how much of himself he truly does bring to it, to the point where it's kind of like you're like, dude, it's a work, right? Like, are you okay? Like he's like, it's all right, man. But he makes you believe it because he believes it.
Yep.
um I legit think that he hates CM Punk. I don't think that there really is any love lost between the two of them. I could be right, I could be wrong. He could be working me this whole time. I'm convinced, because I feel like if he says what he says in your face, you did something.
Mhm.
You did something. Um, I was also relieved to see uh people knowing when to like take a step back. Like Moxley,
Mhm.
I hope you're happy, healthy, and safe. Um, good on him to be able to like recognize like and good on AEW too to be like, go home.
Yeah.
Just you're okay. Just go home.
Yeah.
Do what you have to do. Uh, and I don't want to make like WWE the heel company, but there are people in the company that I don't necessarily like.
Nick
Uh,
Khan.
yeah, who just are they're more of a everybody will say the same thing. It's a bad look when you're promoting record profits and
Mhm.
every single time afterwards you show off the amount of massive layoffs you do.
Mhm.
And then it's even worse to satirize it on your own programming,
Mhm.
having the man who's in charge of your company say on television, "I enjoy firing people."
Mhm.
Like, okay. How
In
about the
2 cases right before they got married.
right? Like, ah, but anyway, uh I let's go through the year as it were.
Let's do it.
So in January, things were still being it wasn't until April that for the most part live crowds were in perpetuity for the most part. But we had the Royal Rumble, we had oh gosh, where is it? Who won Royal Rumble this past year? I can't even remember.
Bianca
Bianca Belair
and,
and
Edge.
Edge. Wow.
Yeah.
Like, isn't that weird? Like that Royal Rumble is my favorite show ever. Like it's my favorite match. I just think it's so much fun to watch. The anticipation of it, the build up, it's easy to follow. Come in, come out,
Mhm.
eliminated, all that stuff. And I can't remember a thing about this year.
Yeah. The most notable, I mean, Edge's, well, it wasn't even his return because he came back last year, right?
Yeah.
Um, but it was, his first real championship run, uh, in since I saw what had been his last match live at the otherwise completely forgettable WrestleMania 27
Oh yeah,
when he beat Alberto Del Rio. But it was also the last appearance of Christian in
oh yeah,
WWE before he jumped to AEW in the spring and meandered about the mid card for the rest of the year.
that's true. Well,
He
we
did have a
also
He also won the Impact World Title and
that's true.
challenged Kenny for the
I was gonna say
AEW.
we've had a lot of big belt stuff this year.
Mhm.
Kenny Omega obviously being the belt collector.
Yes.
Uh, that obviously recently stopped, and I'm glad that he's taking the time off that he needs because the
Mhm.
man apparently had been working injured the whole year. You psycho, Kenny. What the hell is wrong with you?
That's
Uh,
how he rolls.
Kota Ibushi, brought together the IWGP and Intercontinental Championships to become the
Yep.
first world heavyweight IWGP champion. Granted, that didn't officially happen till later, but
Right.
when he defeated both Tetsuya Naito and Jay White
Mhm.
in
At Wrestle
back-to-back
Kingdom.
Wrestle Kingdom
Yep.
events. Jay White having one of his best promos I had ever seen after that show, where basically he sat down at the press conference area and was just like, I don't know if I should be doing this anymore. Like, what's the point? Like, he really had that like career defining type of, like, everybody was talking about it
Yeah.
afterwards. Like, did Jay White just like shoot quit after a
Right.
show? Like,
Yeah.
everyone just thought like he straight up was like, I'm done with this place. Goodbye.
Yeah.
It was amazing. Jay White, again, one of those talents who, like, I hope really gets more and more exposure this year to the right audiences.
Mhm.
Um, Alexander Hammerstone had a beginning of a breakout year with
Yeah.
his OVW
MLW.
his MLW
Yeah.
open weight championship.
Yeah. Leading up to
Then
him finally winning
winning.
the MLW World Title later in the year. Big
Thing is,
big
we
year
still
for
have
him.
1 week left of this year to do, folks.
Yeah.
There's
Who
still
knows
1
what's going
week
to
left
happen in
of
the
the
next
year.
5 days?
Darby Allin was retaining his the TNT
Yep.
championship. We had
There
some
was that fantastic Kenny and Phoenix match
yeah, oh
at New
yes.
Year's Smash.
Can I talk about just like how any Ray Phoenix match is my favorite match, because like I
Yes.
don't know how this man moves the way he does. I don't think I've ever seen a wrestler move so fluidly
Yeah.
the way Ray Phoenix does.
He's a video game glitch.
Yeah,
Like he's
but it's not a glitch,
Vanellope
it's a
von
feature.
Schweetz from Wreck-It Ralph. There are things that man can do that no one else on earth can do. Phoenix, going out on a limb here. Phoenix might be the best wrestler in the world. He's not booked as such, and he didn't have a fantastic standout singles year in 2021. But in terms of people I want to watch in the ring have a match, Phoenix is right up there.
Oh, absolutely.
It has been for years.
Finn Balor and Kyle O'Reilly beat the ever living hell out of each
Yes.
other
Oh my
for
god.
the NXT championship.
That New Year what was that? New Year's
New Year's
Evil?
Evil.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the other thing. It was a lot of gimmick name shows. New Year's Evil, New Year's Smash.
Well, and January also saw the auspicious debut of the Superstar Spectacle.
Yeah, do we have to talk about that?
No.
Superstar Spectacle, like,
oh, that show was so bad. It's
just
yeah, I made myself watch it because in research for the 500, I've been collecting like every wrestler's like Meltzer rated matches to
Right.
see who was having the best matches this year, and consistently everybody in WWE that had a match at Superstar Spectacle, their worst match of the year was at Superstar Spectacle.
Oh my god.
Because it was full of it was targeted. It was a TV special for Indian Republic Day in January.
Wow.
And it was full of all of the developmental talent WWE had signed from India,
Right.
almost none of whom were ready for television.
None. And how many are on TV now? None.
Well, Veer is coming.
Yeah. We'll see how long that lasts.
He's taking the whatever route it was that Emelina was taking when she was coming.
Yeah.
Before
just
her,
follow the truck. Just follow the trucks. Go to the venue that the trucks are at. Then you'll show up.
In fact, the entire calendar is posted on their website. Go in advance.
Go in advance. Maybe
Go
get there a day early.
Yeah.
And you won't be just missing it every time.
But I'm looking at the card from that show. It was main evented by Drew McIntyre and Indus Sher, which was Rinko and Saurav, against Jinder Mahal and the Bollywood Boys. Now, the Bollywood Boys can work.
And
Charlotte and Serena Sandhu, who I had never heard of before or since.
Not Serena Sandhu.
Natalia.
Not Serena Sandhu. You're telling me they undercut that long-awaited date?
Yeah, they threw it on free TV.
Just like them to do that.
Yeah, right. Very typical.
The transparency of trying to just appeal to the market is so blatant. Like, listen, I get it. And I'm glad that you're expanding your talent outside of North America.
100%.
But actually maybe do the work. Maybe try and like teach them or like get people who can work. But that is another shift that changed this year.
Or don't do the show until they're ready to work.
Don't do the show. How about that? And then the Royal Rumble happened, and that stuff.
And it was quickly forgotten.
In February, there were a lot of outside WWE, or rather, I should say, mainstream shows that were getting some credibility, mainly with GCW. The Bloodsport shows had been really like just going viral with just the attention that they were getting. In fact, that they were going cross country with these. It was Barnett that took over for Riddle's booking of the show, because that was like his idea that he brought to it. And then he obviously, Riddle went to NXT, and they brought in Josh Barnett to help with those shows, and they became like huge. Moxley was just running the gamut in terms of, I want to work everywhere I can possibly work, and kept doing that with GCW, with NJPW, surprisingly keeping that United States Championship, where in a time where we thought like, oh, well, clearly because he can't go overseas, he's just going to drop it to a New Japan talent.
Right. He's gonna lose it to Kojima, or he's gonna lose it to.
But then
Kenta.
Then New Japan realized, like, it's the United States Championship. It probably should stay in the United States,
right? Yeah.
Or at the very least, be defended the most in the United States.
Yeah. Well, especially since now they've got Strong. They have a presence in the States they didn't have before. That they now have an American show where the United States title can be defended.
I was concerned that Strong wasn't going to carry over as well with a live audience in front of it, considering it had started with no audience, and it's very pure wrestling, oriented for the most part.
It's very Japanese.
People loved it, and it's also really refreshing too, because I know in laws in Japan you cannot vocalize any support. It's only claps or stomps, as it were. Which every great heel in Japan has been utilizing to make the crowd even more pissed off that they can't talk, by like, oh, thank you for the applause. Like Jay White worked that the best. He's like, yeah, that's right. Clap for me. Clap for me. And they're just like, oh, I can't do anything else. Although I think Kota did some maneuver where he actually, no, I think it was Tomohiro Ishii hit someone so hard he got the crowd to gasp.
They gasped. I remember that. I think we talked about that earlier.
Which is like insane. Yeah. It's like we legally cannot make noise, and you just made us all inadvertently break the law. And you know, the New Japan had some pretty good shows. MLW was getting some rise in there as well. Um, People started to realize that Loki's not really that cool a dude. Uh, and
Yeah.
Rich Swann was still having his living his best
Yeah.
life as Impact champion.
Yeah.
And then we
Yeah.
get into March. Now, this is where the live crowds started to, for the most part, slowly filter into Jacksonville.
Mhm.
They had been, you know, at Winter is Coming, there were at 2020 with the return of Sting, that was, it felt bigger than it was, even though there wasn't that many people there. It still felt
There
big,
were
like it was
people. Yeah.
great. Like Sting just manifested thousands of voices live to show up at that point, just based on his arrival. We started really getting uh the Hangman story going
Yes.
into real full, like, beginning of his climb back up the ladder to get to that championship. And to think, like, it all started like like, I mean, granted, it really did start like day one of AEW. Uh
Yeah.
and but now, like, the refocus on Hangman kind of came around this point. Paul White showed up to debut
Mhm.
in AEW. No more BS.
That's right.
Just tall Paul. That's why I like it. Well, it's Paul.
It's a big old Paul tonight.
uh this was also the first at the New Japan 49th anniversary show. This was the very first time that world the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship was recognized
Mhm.
with a very divisive belt design.
Yes. I
Yeah,
wonder, would the reaction to the new title have been so negative if the previous IWGP Heavyweight title
wasn't
wasn't so
so
iconic?
good,
Yeah.
wasn't so
Like,
perfect.
it's it's a little bit like, now this is apples and oranges here, because in the example I'm about to give, the title was actually atrocious. But it's like when John Cena debuted the spinner belt.
Right.
And it's like, oh no, that's ugly. What happened to the traditional title?
Right.
In this case, they went from a traditional title to another traditional-ish title, but not
A
nearly
little
as cool
too,
looking.
like, it's like, oh, we're trying to bring in like a modern aesthetic to it. I'm like, I don't think modern was ever the issue. I
Hmm.
think it's just that it's odd. It just makes you like, okay, so for folks who don't know, I'm actually gonna pull it up
Yeah,
to
yeah, do it.
compare the old championship belts. So the International Wrestling Grand Prix Heavyweight Championship, as we all know it. Um the oh, why can't, of course I can't find a high res picture for it now.
You
But
failed me, internet.
it why? Uh the current one has like this winged V look design to it. Um it's odd, to say the least. I'm gonna let's see if I can share. Okay. Here we go. So yeah,
Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, objectively, it's not a great design.
it
Um,
has, like, it's supposed to have like a combination of different eras
mhm,
in it, because this has like the tri-point front face plate of many years ago. The
mhm.
side plates um look, you know, a take from one of the more recent ones, the font and the use of it. But compare that to the previous version, which I will do so here. First of all, a lot of people were comparing the most recent one to the Divas Championship
Yes.
from way back in the day. Um, I gotta
Though
zoom in on this one.
the New Japan title looks a little less, how to put this delicately, anatomical.
Yeah.
than the Divas title did.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's
The current the heavyweight championship of old is currently being carried around now as a signifier of the winner of the King of Pro Wrestling.
yes.
If you're confused yet, don't worry.
Don't worry,
uh,
it's confusing.
it's you're right to be confused. I just am trying to find the best one. Oh, okay, this is a good one.
Yeah.
The so
In
the
New
previous
Japan's
version of it.
defense, almost every
I mean,
title.
look at
Yeah,
that.
I mean, that's gorgeous.
And you see
One of the
how
best
like
looking
you
belts
have
ever.
each previous winner, and the thing is, it's very sports oriented. It reminds me of like the Stanley Cup or like the
Yes.
any world championship of a sport where all previous winners are in it in some
Mhm.
capacity. And just the ornate design, the intricacy, the jewels, the nameplates, the heft to it, with its layers. And the other one's just it just kind of looks flat. It looks like a toy more than a belt.
Yes. Yes. That's a really good way of describing it. It does look like a toy.
And it
Um,
was brought in, and everyone was like, "Ooh, ooh."
ooh. But again, like I started to say, almost every title in WWE is ugly right now.
Oh yeah,
But that's a whole different
and no
discussion.
consistency.
Yeah.
Like it's just kind of like, oh, that looks all right.
Yeah.
Like the
Let's
Intercontinental Title Championship, that the current design, it's pretty cool.
yes.
It's just so out of place because it's so drastically different than big logo in the middle of a belt type deal.
Right, which is what every title, other than the 24/7, every new WWE title for the last decade or so is just, well, let's just slap our logo in the middle of it as large as we possibly can.
And the same with the United States Championship. Like now, especially, it looks like a toy. Uh,
Ah,
just like it's over the top. Like there's a line to like it's weird. Like I feel like if all the belts had a consistent look to it akin to the current Intercontinental Championship,
mhm.
not that it's going to help me take the product any more serious, but I like a little bit of uniform design with the way that your belts are going to look. Because just to me, then it like really signifies a sport brand to it.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Yeah,
look at the titles in the WWF during the Attitude Era.
yeah,
Yeah, Austin briefly had the Smoking Skull belt, but even the Smoking Skull belt looked like the world title.
right,
It had all the same trappings. It just, instead of the WWE logo in the middle or the Winged Angel, it had a smoking skull in the middle of it. Even the hardcore title was an old WWF title belt that had been smashed up and duct taped back together.
right.
It still met the look. You know, Mike and I have talked in the past about our past working at Disney, but there was a WWF look
Yes.
to
Yeah, there was
titles.
very much a
Oh,
look to it. When you saw it, you were like, "That's WWF." Same thing
yes,
with WCW. You
absolutely.
saw it, and there was a level of branding to it. And this
Yes.
same thing with the NWA in the '80s with their
Yep.
championships, and they've been all over the place. Um, but I'm big on belt design. I'm a championship belt mark. I can't help it. I love it. I think they're so much fun. Um, I do think that AEW is almost teetering into some inconsistency. I'm glad that the TBS championship is not just a smaller version of the TNT championship,
Yes.
much like the current AEW women's championship is basically a bit of a smaller version of the
It's
men's world championship.
it's a Riho-sized version of
Yeah,
the
like it works
which is
great
why
on on
it looks
Riho,
so
but
comical on Nyla when she won it.
yeah, like if you put the women's championship, the current women's championship belt on like Jade Cargill, it looks like a
Mhm.
pinky ring,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
But I do believe that she will probably be the inaugural TBS champion, and at least the belts are identical. Like
Yes.
and another thing is that there was something that you and I recently talked about, and I'm sure, and we'll get to that when looking into 2021 about the actual like identification of divisions and how that may evolve.
Mhm.
But let's look continuing with
Well
March.
yeah, one other big thing that happened in March was arguably NXT's best show of the year. Vengeance
Yeah.
Day with that
What-
that Balor
As
and
we
Gunn
all
main
know,
event.
Vengeance Day is the one former Attitude Era pay-per-view that we were hoping was brought back.
Yeah.
What?
Well, and it's not even that. It's
Why not just
mashing
say
two of them
Valentine's
together.
Day Massacre? Like, why not just do the
Yeah.
old one or just
Yeah.
do Vengeance? Why did
Yeah.
like
NXT Takeover, Beware of Dog. NXT Takeover, A Cold Day in Hell.
NXT Takeover, Degeneration X? Wait, what?
NXT Takeover, Rock Bottom. But I can go all day, folks. NXT Takeover, Fully Loaded. NXT Takeover, Good Friends, Better Enemies.
Oh wow!
That was the Shawn Michaels
I mean,
Diesel
might as
match
well
where
just do like Tuesday Texas.
that's right.
Takeover.
That's
Why
right.
not?
This Tuesday in Texas Takeover. Good Friends, Better Enemies, notable for that was the night that Shawn Michaels ripped Mad Dog Vachon's artificial leg off to hit Diesel with during the main event.
I mean, there are, oddly enough, stranger ways to beat someone in pro wrestling, but that's up there.
That's true. But that Vengeance Day show, the finals of both Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classics, they had two really good matches. Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez against Ember Moon and Shotzi Blackheart in the women's division, and the rise of MSK beating the
Which
Grizzled Young
stands
Veterans.
for, of course. Moving on.
You also had Johnny Gargano and Kushida
Yes.
had a killer match for the North American title.
And their careers have never been shinier now. Wait.
Kushida needs to get back in his time machine and go back to
that day when he decided to sign with WWE. Because who would have thought that he would think, I'm going to be one of the most notable junior heavyweights and go to the #1 market in North America, where I will end up being in a very problematic portrayal tag team in Jacket Time.
It worked for Kenta.
Did it?
It worked for Jinsei Shinzaki.
Did it?
It worked for Yoshihiro Tajiri.
Did it?
It worked for okay.
So people say
okay.
What happened?
They have had one legit huge Japanese wrestling star, and that was Yoko's. Damn it! No, he's Samoan.
He was Samoan.
People not Crush. No.
I'm like, what? Where did they ever get to do something with Shinsuke Nakamura? I'm like, Shinsuke Nakamura does not care anymore. The man is happy surfing, making money, and
hanging out with Rick Boogs,
and not having to beat up his body the level that he did in New Japan to make the money that he's making now to be able to live an okay life. Like, Nakamura's fine, folks. He's not going anywhere, and he doesn't plan on doing anything else. He got his Rumble win. He got his main event. He's got some decent, title runs and stuff, but he is happy surfing. He is happy living life, and he's doing okay, guys. He's okay. He's just happy he does not have to go through another type of, Naito match or Kota match that he's done in the past.
Or heck, even the Sami Zayn match from his.
And that was it. Let's face it. That was everything we thought was going to keep happening. But even then, I'm just like, this is the last time we're ever going to see that Nakamura. I knew then that I'm like, that is the last time we are seeing the old Nakamura.
As soon as he gets called up, this is over.
This is it. And I was right. But
as we always are,
he's happy. Have I ever been wrong on this show? Have I ever been wrong?
The next time will be the first time. But that same show, Io Shirai, who had a really kind of understated 2021, but an excellent 2021.
Yes.
Beat Mercedes Martinez and Toni Storm in a triple threat. And then that main event with Finn Balor and Pete Dunne.
Oh.
I mean, you want to talk about guys beating the crap out of each other.
An absolute, just... when you hurt watching something like that was up there. And I think that was also just kind of like, let's just disregard whatever the agents tell us and just beat the living piss out of each other.
Pretty much.
Revolution happened. And it was Sting's comeback, first off. Granted, it was a cinematic match, but it was still fun. Still a lot of fun. Then the exploding barbed wire death match happened, which was great
Yeah.
until the unfortunate ending. Now, I
Yes.
know what they were going for. Clearly, they were going to try and do the Terry Funk ending where
Yes.
Moxley was going to get his body covered by Kingston, and then that was going to be Moxley being written out for a while
Mhm.
up until some sort of comeback, but it was going to be the face turn of Eddie Kingston then. The explosion didn't happen as great as
No.
it looked, as they had apparently had practiced it, but they turned it around. They turned it around and made it part of Kenny Omega's spiteful little pissant
Uh-huh.
gimmick that he had turned himself into,
Yep.
saying like, "You idiots, you really thought we were gonna explode someone? Like, come
Right.
on!" Like, I'm
We
like,
wouldn't give
okay,
you the satisfaction.
like that in that instance, it works, but only because of the people doing it. Like,
Yes.
you can't. It couldn't have just been anybody. It worked because of the characters that they were already being.
It worked because of Kenny, and it worked because of Eddie. That
Absolutely.
promo with Eddie and Mox
Oh man.
backstage in the whatever the trailer or whatever that was, where Eddie talks about like his legit like PTSD
Yeah.
and like I mean it almost worked out better for having failed, but I do wish I could have seen it succeed.
Yeah, it kind of makes me wonder like where it would have what at what points would they have gone back to where at least we are now. But
Yeah,
sometimes, things happen.
things
Um
happen, including 4 days later on the what did they call it? St. Patrick's Day Slam episode of Dynamite when Thunder Rosa made Dr. Britt Baker DMD into the face of women's wrestling in 2021 with that
absolutely.
lights out match. That
And
was
she
that
beat
was the match we'd all been waiting from Britt. She was
absolutely.
the first woman AEW ever signed, and up until that point, everybody was just kind of like, "Yeah, I mean, she's solid, but
But like where's Britt Baker? Like we're waiting
right."
for like, all right, give us something. And
We're
then she
waiting
did.
for why did they sign her before they signed Sheeta
Right. Or anybody else
or
that we
Rio
were
or
seeing like
Rose? Yeah,
she
but
proved her
then,
metal right there in
my
that
God,
match, and it is still paying off to this day
hmm
because Thunder Rosa is in the finals for the TBS Championship.
yes,
Uh, there is
semifinals.
in the semifinals.
Yeah, she's
There's
got
absolutely a
Nyla.
possibility that she will
Not Nyla.
become the
Big
inaugural
Bertha.
champion.
Yep,
Now,
yep.
imagine if you will, because it's fun to fantasy book this kind of stuff because they entertain the thought of it. And I love when wrestling shows do this, like dangling those carrots in front of you because it's a possibility.
hmm
So Thunder Rosa had beaten Britt Baker in an
Yes,
unsanctioned match, which means technically it did not count
does not
in the
count.
win-loss records.
hmm
Britt Baker becomes the women's champion before Thunder Rosa does. Thunder Rosa may become the TBS champion, letting that be her inaugural women's championship.
hmm
There is absolutely a possibility that at one point the two will meet for either title, and it could be belt for belt, it could be just for the world championship. Um, just that little win or non-win rather,
hmm
she can hold over her head because she's like, listen, that's great. You have your championship belt. You never beat me officially. And
Yep.
it's like that one little note can make all the difference. And that's
Yeah.
why I love this show.
Show me in our official one loss records where you beat me
Yep.
because it never happened.
Uh NWA was still making some strides with their show.
Yep.
Nick Aldis continuing his at
Dominant
that
run.
point on and on and on um promotional continuation of the world's heavyweight championship.
Mhm. Uh,
Um
the Impact and TNA world titles were unified at Sacrifice in March.
Rich
Uh,
Swann, man, oh man, his year of matches as champion were incredible. incredible matches that he had. Uh, I hope that he does get a little bit more main event spotlight again. I know Moose is doing fantastic as the
Yes.
Impact champion right now. Moose is amazing. I'm big on Moose. Actually, I call my nephew Moose too, and every time I saw him this past for Christmas yesterday, and I was just like, Moose, Moose, Moose. Now, none of my family knows what I'm talking about, but it's good for like me and him. Like,
Yeah, that's
I'm
your
like,
thing. Yeah.
this is your thing with me, buddy. And you know what else was surprising me, and especially I guess like later in this year we'll get back to it, but like Noah had a big kind of comeback,
Yeah.
and it got back into the conversation with a lot of people.
Mhm.
I was very curious to see how that's going to play out, especially with Wrestle Kingdom coming up, with the third show of the lineup
Yes.
being New Japan versus Noah.
Mhm.
I'm gonna be looking
Yeah.
up some stuff, so
Yeah.
let's
Well, while you're talking, Noah, a big part of, we talked about kind of the rise of the, sort of independent, not necessarily independent, but not as huge promotions. Cyber Fight had a huge impact in 2021. The parent company of Noah and DDT and Tokyo Joshi Pro and Ganbare Pro Wrestling, they're about to launch a DD Teens promotion, which is a spinoff of DDT aimed at the teenager market in Japan, with younger
DD
wrestlers and more
Gotta love
cartoony
it.
gimmicks. So yeah, Cyberfight, and they put on one of the big shows of the year. I'm now blanking on the name of it, but it was a crossover show with all of the Cyberfight promotions: Noah, DDT, Tokyo Joshi Pro, Ganbare, and I think maybe even at that time Basara might have still been under that umbrella before they broke out as a separate promotion. But yeah, the rise of Noah, at least in my opinion, in 2021, a big part of that is because of their alliance with Cyberfight, and the interpromotional stuff they did, which kind of helped expose guys like Kazuyuki Fujita and Kino to a kind of a broader audience. Definitely helped them get better American exposure, because Cyberfight has more of a presence in the States, streaming wise, than Noah had on its own.
Yeah, Japanese wrestling, I think definitely got a more I mean, like all wrestling was focused on by fans just to see how are they going to do it without crowds,
Mhm.
or how are they going to do it within the restricted, like within the limits that they had to do.
Mhm.
I think Stardom did amazing
Yes.
with being able to get past that hurdle, which is a huge hurdle, obviously, to get to. New Japan did. It for me, it's a little disappointed to see the decline that New Japan went through.
Mhm.
Not for fault of their own, but just like there was that peak attention. I started pretty much watching right when Balor was at his peak in New Japan as
Mhm. Prince Devitt.
junior heavyweight champion there, with that entrance of him coming out of the coffin as like Venom
Mhm.
or Carnage or whatever it may have been. I was like, oh, I have no idea what this show is, but I want to watch it.
I need all of it right now.
I just needed all of it, and that was like my real like first exposure to it. And then just watching it continue getting like bigger and bigger and bigger, especially
Mhm.
then with Bullet Club stuff happening. But I do hope that there is a little bit of a momentum shift. I think that this working relationship with Pro Wrestling Noah will again, a rising tide lifts all ships.
Yes.
So let's hope that continues for Japanese wrestling as well, because there's a lot of great stuff that comes out of there. But in terms of focus shows that also got a real big like a eyes on it, was definitely Major League Wrestling. Jacob Fatu being part of that as their champion, with one of the best reigns for a long time, I'd
Yeah.
say. Just outside of Aldis's, who had been champion for what feels like decades, but it just
It had been a very long time.
we like you and I are of that same mind that a long reign can be more significant than multiple reigns.
Yes.
Because if you're the best, then you will be holding that championship for quite some time.
Yep.
Just because you can get it back all the time doesn't necessarily mean that you are. It speaks more to the division than it does to you as the wrestlers.
Yes.
If you're looking at it through like a sports oriented look.
So it meant so much more having Hammerstone beat Fatu after Fatu had been champion for 819 days
Yeah.
than it would have if he'd ended Fatu's 6th reign as MLW world title or
Right.
world champion. It's like you comparing it to sports. I think it's a great analogy and a great way to kind of shine a spotlight on this whole phenomenon. Like Flair being a 16-time world champion is different than it used to be, because in his days he would go to the territories and he would lose it to whatever Greensboro's top babyface was,
right,
and then he would win it back at the next big show in Charlotte or whatever,
right. And it all depends on the booking of it too,
right?
You can hot shot a belt around a bunch of people, but what are you really trying to accomplish? What are you saying about your show if that's like it's as accessible as it is?
Right. Whereas in in the NFL, the fact that Tom Brady has 6 Super Bowls, 7 Super Bowls, however many he has now, that's a remarkable feat, because in his sport, you only get one of those a year.
Right.
So to have that many means that you were the best for the year so many times. Jordan won 6 titles in 8 years, and the only 2 he didn't win were because he decided to go play baseball / maybe hide from the mob, depending on who you believe.
Depending on whose story you believe. That's a whole other podcast. I only kind of recently learned about those kind of stories.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, are you kidding me?
Oh, I was a huge NBA fan in the 90s, and I'm from Michigan, so I'm a Pistons fan, so I hated the Bulls. So I was following that story just as intently as my little 12-year-old brain could comprehend it.
Watch The Last Dance, both.
Oh my God.
Just that
one of the best documentaries of the last decade.
Absolutely
it's
amazing.
So good. So good. As is the Get Back sessions on Disney Plus.
Yes,
the Beatles documentary, remarkable. I haven't finished it yet, but what I've seen so far,
Ringo is my new favorite Beatle after watching this show.
Ringo is me if I were a Beatle
for real life. Ringo is absolutely guys. Can we just keep doing this? This is just why do we have to be dicks?
It's just him sitting in the corner, just kind of lazily
beating
beating out a beat and listening to the rest of them bicker. And then afterwards, they all go and talk to Ringo for advice.
Yeah,
he's the adult in the room.
He's the only guy who still wanted to be a Beatle.
I wrote a song about an octopus.
Now, when it comes to April now, as we move into a new month, we have what I think was a kind of understudied singles run with Jey Uso.
Yes.
Jey Uso had such a good amount of time showing that he could hold on his own. Jimmy and Jey, amazing tag team. The Usos are probably one of the best tag teams in WWE in the last decade.
I would say in the last decade, they would easily crack the top 5 just tag teams in the world.
Yes.
I mean, that's including, the Young Bucks and the Lucha Bros and FTR and Red Dragon and the Usos. That, at least to me, that's how good the Usos are, is even in the terrible tag division in WWE, the Usos have still been standouts for so many years.
Because it's just the type of wrestlers that they are is you realize these guys can put together an amazing match. When you let them do what they can do, they will tell a great story. They will give you the excitement that you want to see. And it makes me mad when I don't see it happen that often because of the potential that I know they can deliver in a match. It's the same thing with I could say it about any real established tag team in WWE. God, I don't even know where to start.
I mean, American Alpha,
yes,
the Revival, but I mean, the thing about the Usos, the way that I always kind of figure it, because Crime Time was fun for their era, but Crime Time in like 1995 is not a top tier tag team.
No.
The Usos, you could take them out of 2021 WWE, put them in any era, and they would be a top tag team. They would work
too.
They would put really good matches against Arn and Tully. They would have really good matches against the fabulous Kangaroos back in the 50s. They'd have good matches against the Lucha Bros.
Imagine Usos versus Young Bucks. Ooh. Don't get me started. I would pay so much to see that. Like I want to see
the Usos against the Hart Foundation.
Yeah.
The Usos against Demolition, the Road Warriors. They would work well anywhere, anytime.
You could put the Usos in New Japan and they would kill it. You could put the Usos in Mexico and they would kill it. You could put the Usos like that's the thing. It's like when you can put tag teams like them, like I think the Street Profits now are showing that as well, especially Montez Ford. He is it's one of those things where it's like, oh man, you guys are in the wrong place. Like you need to be somewhere else. I want to see you do what you do in a place that will allow you to do it. And that's definitely stuff that I learned more and more as the year went on. There was some controversy in title changes and in matches. Will Ospreay defeated Kota Ibushi to become the second world's heavyweight champion. He is still calling himself the world's heavyweight champion. He believes that he is unrecognized as such. He holds on to his belt, and the current recognized champion of Shingo is he's holding on to his belt. And then Okada asked nicely, "Can I bring the old belt back?" And they were like, "Yeah, sure." So there's three kind of world champions running around right now.
Yep.
We had Kyle O'Reilly and Adam Cole.
That unsanctioned match from
was this
Stand
the
and
first
Deliver.
one of three,
I
or
believe it was. Yeah.
Yes. This was one of three of their trilogy. The unsanctioned match, as it were. We had Walter in NXT UK, which, by the way, unfortunately is still a thing. But Walter is
Nobody tell Vince.
Walter is coming to mainstream television, apparently, which I'm excited for. I love Walter. I think that again, this year was one of those, like, you really should go back and see his stuff years with Walter, especially his UK championship defenses.
Yes.
And
even going back farther to his days in the British indie scene before WWE kind of ended.
Watch Walter versus Keith Lee in, I think, ICW, or
I think it was ICW. Yeah.
I've never heard meat slap so hard before in my life.
It was like Rocky in the meat freezer.
Yes,
but it was two living men the size of Walter and Keith Lee.
His hands are as big as my head. Like, it just and the marks that poor Ilya Dragunov. That man is just crushed copper at this point. New Japan USA started to get a bit more of a rise in its attention. Guys like Brody King and Chris Dickinson were helping out with that. The New Japan Cup in USA was doing really well. And then the biggest kind of thing to happen for April was the fact that WrestleMania came back with a live crowd. Granted, there was a bit of a rain delay.
A bit, yes.
A bit of a rain delay, which was very odd. But 25,000 fans in Tampa, Florida.
In Tampa, at Raymond James Stadium. Yeah, which was where WrestleMania 36 was supposed to be before they moved it to the Performance Center.
And they brought back the pirate ship that they more than likely would have built for that previous one. And it makes me so upset because the one woman whose gimmick is literally Sky Pirate could have had that entrance on that ship. But also Kevin Owens would have jumped off the top of the pirate ship to hit Shane McMahon. So
also that, yes.
Who
Yes.
knows what could have happened?
True. This is all true.
Oh man, it's the what could have been
Yep.
that kind of makes you hurt, but at the
And
same time, you're like, maybe it was for the best.
yeah. But also, here's the thing that I keep forgetting, but Brian Danielson main evented WrestleMania.
Daniel Bryan Danielson.
Brian Danielson, yeah.
Daniel Bryan Danielson.
Main evented WrestleMania this year.
Yeah.
And then by the end of the year is
Main evented
for the competition.
shows.
Went an hour with Hangman Page. It's amazing to me. WWE, he was their WrestleMania main eventer. He was the biggest story in the industry 5 years ago.
And he sells out, and he helps sell out Arthur Ashe Stadium, puts on one of the most talked about matches of the year, and then goes on to later in the year pull a full hour on television, which hasn't been seen in years.
Yeah.
And not even like a gimmick hour match, just a straight up hour match that met its time limit.
Was Michael's Angle the last time we had a match go an hour?
I was just thinking, I think
that's the last one I remember.
It was, it's definitely the last one that kept in my mind. NXT moved to Tuesdays in April. Which
Wednesday
was
Night War is over.
The Wednesday Night War was over, and we went from
over. if you want it,
we all wanted it to be over, so it was more than likely going to be that way.
Yep.
God, that the whole thing of like, no, NXT's just moving to television because naturally that's exactly the extension it was supposed to be going.
Yeah, we were going to do that anyway.
No, you weren't.
Never trust the dog with shifty eyes.
We saw
the New Japan Cup ended.
The New Japan Cup finally ended.
Tom Lawler winning the strong openweight title, the very first ever champion, still the only champion.
Still the only champion. And it's also the only championship to have New Japan Pro Wrestling in front of it. As all other belts thus far have been by their governing faction, the International Wrestling Grand Prix.
Yes.
Which I still get confused about to this day, but it's just like, because I'm like, if you want to have fun, try explain Japanese wrestling to anyone who hasn't watched it before, especially how titles work in New Japan.
The closest analog I've ever been able to come up with, and it almost stuck for the person I was trying to describe it to. It was like the WCW Championship Committee.
Yeah, but at least WCW was still in the name.
WCW was still in the name, and you would see the members of the championship committee show up on television sometimes. So you'd be like, "Oh, JJ Dillon and those guys." Okay, right, I get it. I get what this is.
Now, here's the thing, though. Not only did WrestleMania happen in April, it also happened in May, kind of, with WrestleMania Backlash.
WrestleMania Backlash.
Why? Like that, you want to talk about like a clear, easy way to get a cash grab of buys. It's like, we'll call it WrestleMania again. You might as well have just called it WrestleMania again.
Also, WrestleMania.
WrestleMania also. WrestleMania TOO.
But WrestleMania 2 was in 1986. No.
We don't do numbers anymore. This is WrestleMania.
This is WrestleMania. 2. This is also WrestleMania.
We had Double or Nothing, which had, in my opinion, a bit of a storyline hiccup in terms of the Pinnacle versus the Inner Circle. I don't feel like you follow up Blood and Guts, which to me still should not have happened until a live crowd. It really, really shouldn't have. And I don't speak from personal envy, being that it was supposed to be the show I would have seen in Newark, New Jersey in March. And I was promised War Games.
War Games.
War Games. Sorry, I had a little bit of Regal. But like, with if since and Stadium Stampede was done in front of a live crowd. Double or Nothing was the first big like pay-per-view they had with the full capacity crowd. And it was a great show, and it ended in a great way. But I don't see how, like, you could have done a multi-man match on television or on, like, just as is. Like, and just done of like a really good like Survivor Series style match and
Yeah.
have Pinnacle win. Still get the same desired effect. And then do the big payoff match, Stadium Stampede. That's great. It just seemed a little like Jericho maybe trying to push like a little too much. You like, did you even notice, like, even though he's out for a little bit, did it feel to you lately that like all of a sudden he showed up at Eddie Kingston's involvement because it was just kind of like, hey, people are talking about Eddie Kingston. Well,
Yeah,
let me help you out, kid.
this is getting over. Yeah,
So should I, Chris. You can
it's
step back a little bit.
It's not to bring it back to Matt Cardona, but it's a little bit like when John Cena and Zack Ryder were all of a sudden buddies.
Yeah,
during the rise of
like this Eddie
Long
Kingston
Island
guy's
Iced
really
Teas.
getting over lately. What would really help him is a little bit of Chris Jericho. It's like, no, dude, he's okay.
He's doing great.
He's doing great.
He's fantastic, actually. That would actually change nothing.
Yeah, it really, really would. Not a lot was going on over the next like couple of like big shows, as it were.
One thing that did happen, and I had blanked on the name earlier. Actually, you know what? That may have been June, so I'm going to hold off.
Okay. Well, we are rolling into June. We had as far as like big stuff, we had here's the thing. Like when the main event, no offense to either of these guys, but Dustin Rhodes versus Nick Comoroto is never really going to main event a Dynamite again.
It shouldn't.
And I like Nick Comoroto. I think he's got a good look to him. I think he's got some good intensity. There's no reason that he could be in that position again. He will in time. I'm sure he will in time. Or maybe he won't. Maybe he may be one of the guys who actually does better in WWE than he would in AEW. That's something that I actually encourage to see in the AEW roster. Seeing some of these guys who like I call like the dark elevators, which are just like the guys you see only on those two shows. Maybe they might have a better shot somewhere else. It's not a bad thing.
No,
it's a good thing.
One other thing from May, Ospreay and Takagi at Wrestling Dontaku was the highest rated Meltzer match, or Meltzer's highest rated match of the year so far. Fantastic.
No, it was the highest rated Meltzer match.
It was
all
the
Japan shows are Meltzer matches.
In all honesty, it was a Meltzer match. Like that match was designed to get a 6-star rating, and it worked. But yeah, I didn't want to let that pass by without mentioning that. The rest of New Japan had a good year, but not a great year.
Right.
But I do want to point out, like, that match in particular was excellent.
Yeah, there's a lot of asterisks next to pretty much a lot of like the quote unquote success of these shows, because we have this overlooming threat hanging over all our heads at any given moment.
The sword of Damocles dangling above us,
as it were. Yes, a sword of Damocles match would be very interesting.
Oh, don't give them ideas, because we will see Drew McIntyre versus Happy Corbin in a sword of Damocles match.
They implied that at one point in this year that Drew McIntyre would have to stop using the sword, as if he had ever brought it to do anything other than be a prop in the ring. Because here's the thing, if he's banned from using the sword, that means they're implying that at some point he could use it as its natural intention to cut someone's head off.
To murder, yeah.
To murder someone.
Yes.
There's no other way to do it.
If that is where they're going, then... Oh, John Nord's dead, isn't he?
Yeah.
I was going to say, we need the return of the Berserker.
Yeah.
The only other successful sword gimmick in the...
I feel like they're going to do some sort of like they don't understand Arthurian legend, and they're going to make a Scotsman try and be King Arthur.
Ooh, I mean, the sword is stuck in that desk.
I
that
mean,
Corbin
as
and
soon as
Moss
it
have
got
been dragging around.
as soon as it got stuck in the desk, I'm like, there's got to be some King Arthur BS going on here.
Somebody showed Vince the Green Knight,
Yeah,
and now he's doing Sword in the
Yeah.
Sword in the Stone.
but he's
That's the
definitely not
only-
going to make it be Jinder Mahal because
No, no.
So we
Cyber
had
Fight Festival was
Yes.
that big Cyber Fight show I was trying to
Cyber Fight.
think of earlier.
Thanks
that
to
was the
you,
DDT,
I am now a
Gandhari,
fan of these shows.
Noah, and Tokyo Joshi Pro all did a crossover show in Saitama in June, headlined by Marufuji against Muto for the GHC heavyweight title, which is the top title in DDT, the Global Honored Crown. I'm sorry,
I love
not DDT, Noah.
Yeah, in Noah, Pro Wrestling Noah.
Yeah.
As the flood came in, Noah brought in 2 of every great wrestler onto one
That's right.
show. We had this month had June had for the most part, when it comes to the summer, people really remember one big event, which is usually SummerSlam. It kind of came and went this year though with summer stuff. The Dynamites were back and forth on Saturdays and Fridays, and because of the NBA finals and everything.
Yep.
I think that's also one of the big things that happened as to why they are going to TBS. He does not want to compete with having basketball on its channel and also having the feed bleed into the broadcast. I don't know. You were watching that one? I think we were both like,
yeah.
You hear basketball going on right now?
There is commentary happening right now.
There's an entire basketball game going on during this match. Very strange stuff.
Also in June, New Japan missed an opportunity by having a show called Ignition, but not calling it the remix to Ignition. But that's just coming from a wedding videographer who has heard that song every weekend for the last 8 years.
And really not having the heart to tell people how problematic that song in your wedding actually is.
Yeah. We'll try and squeeze that in after the conversation about Every Breath You Take. And anything by Michael Jackson.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much.
I know the Thriller dance is fun, but
AEW had a fan appreciation night, which saw one of MJF's contractually obligated matches for him to wrestle in. But it was a great match. Like, that's the thing is
the match with Sammy.
He makes these count. He makes all of his single matches count really, really well. And I think that is a testament to one of the pillars of by the way, the 4 pillars could have easily been the stable that MJF could have made for himself but it just, I love that it's a canonical thing. You have MJF, you have Jungle Boy, you have Sammy Guevara, and you have Darby Allin. And you have Britt Baker as well. There's no question.
Yeah. She's the unofficial 5th pillar.
She should, and there shouldn't even be like an unofficial. It just she is.
She's just not on the t-shirt. Have you seen that t-shirt?
Although Punk wore the one with her on it, yeah.
Yes.
Good on him to do that.
Speaking of Punk's t-shirts,
yes.
Anybody that has a problem with what he wore last week, we have no time for.
No,
you can go hang out with the idiot with the Nyla sign.
That
was an awesome move by Punk to show up in North Carolina wearing that shirt.
Also,
in North Carolina.
My favorite gimmick of the year, perhaps. Kenny Omega having nothing to do with North Carolina.
Winnipeg's finest.
Just using it as part of his entrance to mock the very superstar he is portraying. God damn it, Kenny.
He's just so good at wrestling.
So good.
Everything about it. He just excels.
Take the time. I know that there's been so many reports of when is he coming back? I'm like, I don't care. I want him 100% before he even considers stepping into the ring again for a promo. That's how much I want him to be okay.
Because when he comes back, you know what we're getting when he comes back. The Elite against the Undisputed Era. Like, that's where this is going.
My heart.
So I
like
Kenny at 100% for when Kenny fights Adam Cole and when the Bucks
wait,
fight.
we gotta wait. We gotta save this till what we predictions for next year. We gotta get through this year.
Okay. All right. We're only halfway through the
We're only
year.
halfway through.
Would this be? Do you think this would be a good time to take a little breather? Let people get a
why
get a
not?
beverage
Well,
before we get into the second half of the year.
That's a good little tease. We're gonna take 5, and when we come back, we're gonna look through the second half of the year, and then we will end up with our look at the Twitter votes that we had, as well as our own picks for that, and a little prediction of what to happen next year, as well as what's to come with the 500 itself.
That's right.
So we will be back here watching Pro Wrestling Simulated, or Syndicate, as I originally had written in titles until I realized that's in another promotion.
That's a thing.
That's an actual show. So we will be right back in 5. See you soon.
And we're back.
Welcome back to Pro Wrestling Simulated's year in review. Myself and Pat, the Stat Man, embracing that moniker that I just kind of threw out there in the middle of the broadcast one time. But we are now talking about July 2021 with the promotional debut of GLEAT. Pro Wrestling GLEAT.
Yes.
July 1st. A Japanese professional wrestling promotion founded in 2020 by former Pro Wrestling Noah parent company Lede Entertainment after the acquisition of Noah and DDT Pro Wrestling by Cyber
Fight.
Agent.
Yes. Which then launched Cyber Fight, which we've talked about a couple times so far.
Now, I like my sports-oriented, pro wrestling. I like seeing divisions. I like seeing some rankings in order. But I have never seen anything as confusing as Pro Wrestling GLEAT.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just going to read from the Wikipedia.
Oh, please do. This should be
GLEAT
interesting.
divides their roster based on its two sub-brands, G Pro Wrestling and Lede UWF. GLEAT also recognizes a third roster division, M. These wrestlers have legitimate mixed martial arts experience and may wrestle on either G Pro Wrestling or Lede UWF events. They are then divided into basically G, U, and M. G wrestlers are usually using regular professional wrestling, traditional professional wrestling matches. U wrestlers are affiliated to Lede UWF. That is more UWF international inspired shoot style type of wrestling. And then you have M, which is all mixed martial arts experienced wrestlers. Are you confused yet?
More than a little. So maybe it helps to think of it as who is in what division, not necessarily what is each division, but who's in it. G, which is kind of the main division, pretty much everybody in GLEAT is a pro wrestler. So G is going to have guys like Strong Hearts, so Shima and Lindemann and T-Hawk. Those guys are all in the G division. They don't have any MMA background.
No,
they just wrestle the traditional wrestling style. Whereas and also they bring in people from the outside, guys like Shujihiro Irie, Quiet Storm, guys like that have been.
And for those of you who don't know, UWF was at the time when it was premiered back in the early 90s, I would say.
I believe that's right. Yeah.
It was they were bringing in guys like Dr. Death Steve Williams and the whole notion of this is real fighting. It was kind of like if UFC went into pro wrestling, which arguably some may say it is now, but it's like
it's like Pancrase. If you ever saw any of the Pancrase shows, it's that sort of
it's
hybrid.
just like these guys are really fighting, but not really, but they are, but not really.
Yeah. So that division is going to give you the guys like Kaz Hayashi, who have the legit MMA background, but are also first and foremost pro wrestlers. But they work that hybrid style, which is what you is about. Same with guys like Hikaru Sato, Minoru Tanaka. Those kinds of guys are more in the U division. See, I know what I'm talking about, and I'm still confused.
Yeah, exactly.
I did research on this, and I still am talking myself in circles.
Even though it kind of launched in 2020, it's only being kind of recognized as its continuity in this year.
Yeah, that show on July 1st was the first one. GLEAT
so if you ever wanted
1.
to see what shoot style wrestling was in a worked atmosphere, this is the kind of show that you would check it out as.
Yes, the main event of that show was a U division match show against Takanori Ito. So that would be a good kind of introduction to, especially if you're familiar with New Japan already and you already know show. That's a good kind of way to ease yourself into what GLEAT is trying to do.
And while it's cool to do a show on July 1st as your opening show, what's better than to do a show on July 4th as the premiere show for your literal explosion wrestling show, where FMW Explosion had its show on Independence Day, where
Which they
Onita,
called Independence Day.
the master of the exploding barbed wire death match, faced off in a 6-man tag with Minoru Fujita, Ricky Fuji. They defeated Abdullah Kobayashi, Onryu, and Yuko Miyamoto in a barbed wire and explosive rigged ring death match in Yokohama, Japan.
Yes.
How did it go? About as well as you think.
Yeah. Spoiler alert: Independence Day is not July 4th for the sovereign nation of Japan.
No.
But they knew people.
They knew that it was an American gimmick.
That's right, and they know that stuff explodes on the 4th of July.
That's literally the basis they had off of it. And I'm like, you know what? Hey, make that money. Just don't die.
Yes.
Onita,
Please don't.
why?
Die.
I don't
Please
know
don't
what.
die.
I don't know what bargain you made with some devil in some pact to be like, I'm cursed to no longer be able to die in a ring, so I'm going to try as much as possible. It's my theory of why Tom Cruise does his own stunts. I think that the guy discovered that he's immortal and is just depressed at this point and just wants to keep upping the ante.
He wants to meet Xenu so bad.
So bad. We had
Right.
Adam Cole versus Kyle O'Reilly 2 as part of the Great American Bash.
Wild guess without looking it up. How old is Onita? I just looked it up.
62.
64.
Oh, okay. I knew that. Here's the thing. It's like he's one of those guys who, like, even though he's old, he still looks like it could go either way.
Mhm.
Like,
Yep.
either young and look terrible because you've the amount of work
Mhm.
you've done to yourself in wrestling, or you are old, but somehow you've figured out how to like just stay good looking enough.
Right. Are those wrinkles or are those battle scars?
Right. Like
Like
it could go either
Sabu
way.
to me always looked like he was 20 years older than he actually was because
Absolutely.
his face and his body was just marked up from all the time
Just
he's been ripped
ravaged.
open by barbed wire.
Sabu has always been 75 years old to me.
Yes, yes. Even in his 20s, he was 70.
He's 75 years old.
But
I'll have
you
to
and
know
I
this.
are of a
Sabu is 237 years old.
I would believe that if you told me that in all earnestness. You and I are of a certain age where the best wrestling video games we had ever seen came out on the N64.
Yes.
And the games that Ukes and THQ were making for WCW before they jumped ship to the WWF often had analogs for Japanese wrestling stars that they didn't have any rights to because they were making a WCW.
And you could download they had their patterns of their costuming on the creator wrestler options.
Yep.
Like I made Kobayashi, I made Onita, I made like all those guys.
So in I want to say it's World Tour, but I could be wrong. It might have been Revenge. In one of them, there's a default wrestler in the game called Dake Ken, who is Onita.
Yeah.
If you look at his moveset, aside from the fact that he enters every match holding a sledgehammer. So I think it was Revenge and not World Tour. Also, Dake Ken on the roster of Worldwide Wrestling now. Dub 3. Also, I don't know, am I breaking the fourth wall? Am I breaking kayfabe here? When I point out that I just learned that Legend from Dub 3 is Rosemary. I just learned this.
Oh, wow.
I should have known this. Like, I've always been like, her face is so recognizable. Like, because it's not covered in paint and she's not doing a demon gimmick.
Well, there you go.
Okay, I get it. But yes, that's anyway. Sorry if I spoiled anything.
We just ruined the immersion.
But
lock it up. We're done.
But that's how long Onita's been doing this.
Yes,
Onita was in WCW versus NWO Revenge
as a young man.
As a young man, well, as a 30-something.
Yeah,
that would have been like what,
relatively young man.
98. So it would have been.
We're like 30. We're the tail end of the crossover with Gen X into millennial. Like that's where we are.
We're Xennials.
We're Zennials, as it were.
Yes. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
No, it's all right. well, we had AEW's first show back on the road outside of Jacksonville with Road Rager in Miami, Florida, which was headlined by the Young Bucks defeating Eddie Kingston and his best friend, Penta El Cerro Miedo, in a street fight. It was also the in-ring debut of Andrade El Idolo and the debut of Malachi Black with the fantastic Blackout arrival and then spinning heel kick to the face. Now, the cool thing about it is that they did tease it in a fun way with the accidental Blackout earlier in the show, and then it happening again and him showing up. Whether it was on purpose or not, I don't know, but I'd like to give them maybe a little bit of credit to it and think that it was.
I contend that it was intentional. I think that they wanted to set the stage for people to think, oh man, another technical glitch, and they're like, oh holy crap.
Like, no, we really didn't expect it to happen as quick as it did. And so far Malachi Black has had a bit of a slow burn. I think that it's kind of like what happened with Miro in the beginning of his AEW run, where it's just kind of getting the, like, it's still me, I'm still, but now with this House of Black thing that seems to be forming, we're going to get like, okay, this is really the Malachi Black we're getting for AEW. We had Alexander Hammerstone won the 40-man battle match Riot, the
Battle Riot
40-man Battle Riot match for a future World Heavyweight Championship opportunity. This was their first show since March 2020 in front of a live crowd. A lot of firsts for shows with live crowds this month.
Yes.
We had
did you see that Battle Riot match?
I did. I watched it live. That
was a fun show.
Great show to watch.
And I like the rules of the Battle Riot, where it's basically the Royal Rumble, except you can also be pinned. So that adds that additional layer of, like, eliminations really can't come out of anywhere.
I always thought, like, if you're going to do that, let the pinfall be it should be the last two. Like, to me, like, if you really wanted to, like, just differentiate yourself, let the final two only be decided. Like, the winner of that match only be decided by pinfall by the final two men of the match, or I guess you know what, I would say only pinfall, because you can do submissions or whatever, but it just feels like there's just something more satisfying about those final 3 seconds. Kenny Omega had defeated Sami Callihan, and this was the first Impact Wrestling show to have live fans since March 2020 with Slammiversary. Roman Reigns defeated Edge at the first pay-per-view held outside of Florida since Elimination Chamber in March 2020.
Yep, that was at Money in the Bank.
Fyter Fest happened in Garland, Texas, with Lance Archer defeating Jon Moxley in a Texas death match to win the United States Heavyweight Championship of IWGP. And man, what a delivery on that match.
Oh yeah.
It was amazing.
That was a great Texas death match.
And the thing is, it's like we as wrestling fans have been conditioned with WWE being the dominant show for the last 20 years, that the hometown guy usually doesn't win a match when in their town,
and usually winds up humiliated somehow.
And what could be the obvious solution to a feud that we don't mind happening gets pulled out from underneath us for the sake of it. But we actually got the natural conclusion and a satisfying payoff. And I hope that Lance Archer does whatever he's going through or recovering from, eventually that they do find a good spot to bring him back into the limelight, because hey man, everybody dies, right?
That's
including some people's runs at the top. And I do see that he could be a world champion potentially. I would like to see him have at least I would like to see him have a run with the TNT championship at the very least. We had Dominic Mysterio showing up a bit more in SmackDown with this weird, like, very short crossover with the Rolling Louds concerts, it seemed. I feel like SmackDown, like WWE in general, was like, "Hey, let's get our matches out in front of these big live crowds at concerts," and then the concerts are like, the people at the concerts like, "What the hell am I here for?" Like,
Yeah.
I didn't,
And
I don't care.
and you're not even giving us the big stars. Like that was Jimmy Uso against Dominic Mysterio main evented that Rolling Loud show.
It's
Like
so weird.
at least give like the audience, even if they were tangentially aware of wrestling, they're like, "Oh yeah, I know Mysterio." Like, who's
Yeah,
this
give
kid?
them someone they know.
Give them Ray.
It's Dominic Mysterio.
Yes.
We had there was Shingo Takagi defeated Hiroshi Tanahashi
Yep.
at Wrestle Grand Slam to retain the World Heavyweight Championship. And Adam Cole defeated Bronson Reed, as who, by the way, Bronson Reed now killing it as Jonah
Yep.
In New Japan, and
And
kind of in
Impact.
general in just he's getting his name out there.
Yeah. Well, he attacked Josh Alexander in Impact also, so it looks like he's going to be a player there as well, going for the
And
monster heel.
I do like that you can see these guys show up, but it doesn't mean they're going to be there forever. It just means that right now, this is where they're going to be. You're going to see them, and you never know where it could go. And I prefer that because I want to watch more wrestling and be like, who's going to show up where?
Right.
I love that about it. Going into August,
Well, let's not forget about AEW's Fight for the Fallen, featuring that No Rules match sponsored by Domino's Pizza.
Oh God, I thought that was August. Now that I think about it, oh my
Nope,
gosh, you're right.
that was July 28th.
Okay,
Jericho
I
and
laughed
Gage.
so hard when after Nick Gage brings out a pizza cutter, his signature weapon, no less, and slices Jericho open. What do they cut to? A Domino's Pizza commercial.
Mhm.
We all know it was unintentional. It was just
Of course.
hilariously timed.
Yes.
It was just pure hilarious coincidence.
Mhm.
And oh man, I joke like with my friends, we were watching, we're like, oh, that's either brilliant or someone fudged up bad. But man, hey, look, what Nick Gage, being the person that he is, obviously has cleaned up his life a lot considerably
Yes.
since he's still a bit of a liability to have on a major television network show.
Still a ballsy move by AEW to bring him in, even more so to put him in the ring with Jericho.
But it was proof that these kind of appearances can happen without them being signed.
Mhm.
And I thought, good, keep having that. It's like when Homicide showed up.
Yeah.
Everyone was like, "Oh, great, Homicide's about." I'm like, no, that doesn't necessarily mean it. Just
No.
he
He's
could
here
just show up.
tonight.
He was
Yeah.
just showing up.
Well, and I mean, a lot of the AEW talent don't have AEW contracts.
Right.
Julia Hart is not signed to AEW, even though she
No.
comes out with a Varsity Blondes every week and may become the Dark Queen in the House of Black.
I do think that's
Like,
where it's going. I actually do.
Other than Peter Avalon, none of the wingmen are signed,
No.
but they're on Dark and Elevation every week.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people. Wheeler Yuta doesn't have a WWE or an AEW contract.
No.
But there he is,
He's part of the Best
Chaos
Friends.
and
He's part of
Best
Chaos.
Friends. Yeah. That's the cool thing about AEW is one of many cool things about AEW. And I don't want this because I know the reputation that AEW fans have online of not seeing any bad. There's a lot of bad in AEW, and we can get to that as we go.
Absolutely.
But the fact that you don't have to be signed exclusively to them to make an impact. I just think that's very cool.
Right. And you don't have to be signed to Impact to make a Dynamite debut. Well, we'll see. That was a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, I got where you were going.
Now, as this year goes on, we get more and more on the Johnny Gargano focus on NXT.
Mhm.
And he was seeing himself, slowly phase himself out of NXT. His odd relationship with Dexter Lumis, the whole storyline being that I don't want this person to bone my daughter.
Fake daughter.
like,
Yeah.
like what? Now, I've watched Sam Shields, aka Dexter Lumis, outside of his NXT run. And the guy can go. He's
Yes,
a
he can.
very he's more of a high flyer than people think. But the fact that he can no sell a dead face is the thing that gets him over in NXT, more importantly with management. And
Yes.
that's why he has been just doing what he's been doing for as long as that he's been doing. The guy knows how to not break at all. And that to deadpan is a very hard skill.
Absolutely.
As someone who notably laughs on stage a lot from
Yeah.
other people, just because I enjoy how funny they are.
I was say both of us have a bit of improv comedy background. It's very hard.
It's incredibly hard
to, especially when someone, the skill
it's just
level of
naturally
a
good at being able to just make you laugh without them doing anything.
Yep.
So good on him. I hope that Dexter Lumis continues to have some sort of semblance of it's weird now, especially because in NXT right now, NXT 2.0, I should say, everyone is wrestler who has a job. Like, this is your
like
thing.
Duke the Dumpster Drosy,
right?
TL Hopper.
We're back to those gimmick days.
Abe Knuckleball Schwartz.
We have a basically a parody of a liberal social worker. We have a serial killer. We have a mob boss. We have a gambler. We have that's the thing. It's like, and people are saying, well, what about Dr. Britt Baker? I'm like, she's an actual dentist.
She is it's not a gimmick. She is
not
actually
a gimmick, guys.
Literally.
She's a legitimate dentist.
It would be like if they started introducing Mayor Kane.
Right.
No, that's actually what
he's literally the mayor of Knoxville.
Yeah.
It's completely different.
Yes. Very, very different.
Jon Moxley defeated Daniel Garcia in the first dance, and the first dance being the return of CM Punk to professional wrestling. Holy cow. There were so many ways that this show could have started. Was there going to be like a special video package? Was it going to be a fake a bait and switch entrance by like someone like MJF or something?
Like MJF,
nope.
Yep.
Just the music hit and off it went.
And there's Punk. Yep. The moment that changed the face of professional wrestling in 2021.
The literal game changer.
Everything was different after August 20th. I just taking this from a personal attack. In August of this year, I got COVID. I had the Delta strain, so I was isolating for weeks. I watched AAA's Triple Mania show on the 14th through less than legal means while isolating in my guest room, hopped up on who knows what medications, watching that brutal Psycho Clown versus Rey Escorpion match.
One of our boys
bled so much. Horrible match. Not a great wrestled match, but a fun match to watch.
Yeah.
I was just getting better by the third week in August, and my wife's a wedding photographer. I've talked about this a few times on the streams, and she had a wedding in Alabama on the 21st, and it was like my first time back out in public after I'd done my 10 days of quarantine. Drove down to Alabama, got a hotel room, and I'm like, okay, I have to watch Rampage tonight at 9 because it's in Central Time. I have to watch it. And we check into the hotel at 8:52. I am racing to unload the car, get on the elevator, up to the room so I can flop down on the bed and turn on the TV as I think it was The Accountant ends.
Yes.
The Ben Affleck
I can't
movie.
tell you how many times I've watched the end
the last 10 minutes of The Accountant.
Last full 10 minutes of The Accountant, of the one with Denzel Washington. That's now a TV series on CBS with Queen Latifah.
The Equalizer.
The Equalizer. Those two films, and also The Meg.
And the
Like
Meg,
the last 10
yes.
minutes of those movies I have seen probably more than I've seen any movie ever
That's quite possible.
because of just waiting for Dynamite to start.
But then as soon as the last credit rolls on The Accountant, it's Friday night. You know what that means. And just like the goosebumps all up my arm. That was also the night that my wife discovered that she really likes Darby Allin. She had never seen an AEW show, but I made her watch it with me because there's only one TV in the hotel room. So
Darby Allin is a human bullet.
Yes.
I've never seen someone move through a ring that fast and murder people.
Yep. He's I was playing Mario Party. We got my mom the new Mario Party for Switch, and we were playing that last night. And there's a mini game where you take a Mega Mushroom and you get really big, but you can only run in a straight line. There's no way to turn. That's Darby Allin.
Yeah.
Like you point him at who you want to hurt, and off he goes. So that
it really was like the whole turning point in the notion of the legitimacy of AEW, I would say. The seriousness that people should take this promotion in terms of like, oh well, it's just cast-offs. I'm like, this is equivalent to Hogan jumping to WCW. And I don't mean in terms of like, obviously Hogan had his own reasons for doing it. But it's when I equate it to that, I mean it in terms of the power of one person that they have to your promotion to take that with them over to what is considerably now the rival promotion or the competition, as it were, for WWE. That is huge. It's like when any major sports trade happens and you have your top pitcher or your top quarterback or any your forward guard on your captain of a team. If they're going to, it's like when LeBron moved from Cleveland to LA. It's
when Barry Bonds went from Pittsburgh to San Francisco.
Yeah,
it's a game changer.
They are the difference maker in how your brand is going to be seen going forward.
Yeah,
from that point on.
The Hogan comparison is a really good one. I hadn't really thought of it in those terms, but that's an excellent way of putting it. This, because people are like, oh, he's just a WWE cast off. No, he is. Punk and Danielson are the two biggest stars in the industry over the last decade, not named Cena, Lesnar, or Reigns. An argument could be made that they're bigger stars than Reigns. But CM Punk is what WWE fans would chant when they disapproved of what was happening in the ring.
Yeah. You can't tell me that hasn't have an impact on somebody.
WWE fans wanted Punk back because they didn't like what they were seeing. They wanted the thing they wanted above all else is for what's happening in the ring to go away and for CM Punk to come back. And CM Punk came back to the other show.
Right.
And the importance of that cannot be overstated.
Absolutely
it was huge. It was a tidal shift, TIDAL, shift in the wrestling landscape that we're only just kind of now starting to feel the impact of months later when we look at the weekly ratings. And, Dynamite is the number 2 show on cable. Not that they're just beating, NXT. Like, there's only one show on cable with better ratings than Dynamite right now.
It's crazy. And I am looking forward to what we have seen now, the Punk getting this idea of, do I still have it? Okay, so I'm going to show off what I can still do. And the whole happy to be here Punk is kind of moving away now, and we're getting the I heard somebody put it, his body is now moving at the same pace as his brain, which is to say that he knows how to make you believe something so well that physically he may not be able to catch up with, though, at his
Mhm.
age and at the amount of time that he was away from the ring.
Right.
But now they're kind of in sync with each other to know the kind of story that he can tell that you're going to want to see, that he can pull off as well as he does. And it's certainly shifted in that direction with Kingston, and it especially is now with MJF. And I again, I will save it for predictions, but his program now is going to truly set the bar for what to expect of how these guys are coming in for the homegrown talent.
Mhm.
Um,
I, for one, welcome our new Punk overlord.
I absolutely do. I absolutely do. There was another. I still think it's an under the radar moment, and it was the fact that Trevor and I watched this live. Trevor Murdoch defeated Nick Aldis for the
Yes.
NWA World Heavyweight Championship in St. Louis, Missouri. St. Louis, Missouri. Nick Aldis had held on to that championship for 1,000+ days,
Mhm.
unheard of in any sort of modern lore of pro wrestling. And what a great story. Murdoch, I mean, this is as old school as it gets. Murdoch couldn't beat him the first time, started to doubt whether he was actually able to still go at his age in the ring. You know, is it worthwhile to still be to be wrestling professionally?
Mhm.
Aldis was kind of like in his head at that point saying, listen, why don't you just put it all out on the line? If you can't win, you're done. Because why am I going to give you a second chance? And he he put his money where his mouth is in his hometown. He wore his tribute to his trainer with Harley Race. I mean, Trevor Murdoch looks like Harley Race from like
Yes,
top
he
to bottom.
does. He's like if somehow Harley Race and Dick Murdoch could have a baby,
Absolutely.
Trevor Murdoch would be what happened. Nick Aldis's reign, by the way, 1,043 days.
1,043 days. That's amazing. That is amazing.
All
And all
time.
over the world too.
Yeah.
Wrestled in countries that the World's Championship had not been defended in prior to.
Mm-mm. Nick Aldis has 2 title reigns. This is just fun Statman stuff that maybe nobody else cares about. Aldis has had two NWA World title reigns. His first one, he lost to Cody at All In after 266 days, won it back 50 days later, and then held it for 1,000+. Only in the history of the NWA World title, only 5 wrestlers have held the title more combined days than Nick Aldis.
5.
Harley Race is 3rd. Ric Flair is 2nd. Number 1, Lou Thesz. Like, that's the company that Nick Aldis is keeping. Also, Dory Funk Jr. is 4th and Dan Severn is 5th. Gene Kiniski 7th, Adam Pearce, Jeff Jarrett, Pat O'Connor. That's the rest of the top 10. Like, that is insane company that Aldis is among. Granted, the NWA World title doesn't mean what it meant in Thesz, Flair, Race, Funk's day.
I certainly think that Aldis has helped push it back into notoriety.
The 10 pounds of gold has become a big thing again, in large part because of Aldis.
Absolutely. I feel like, and that anniversary show, that title switch meant so much more. A lot of emotion behind the match. Murdoch's family was there. They came into the ring. They celebrated afterwards. It was beautiful. And there was no bait and switch at the end. There was no like last minute like turn. There was no minute anything. It was just a good, wholesome moment to have in that show. And now, he cares. I love that guys who in NWA, they hold the belts like the old school way. Like they hold it like TV style. There's something about I just love that old school presentation. Like you come to the ring wearing the belt, but when you're the champion, you present yourself to be the champion. It's a fun little touch that I love and stuff like that.
Well, and let's not forget,
and also Empower was that.
Yep.
Yeah,
exactly. The other big NWA show that weekend was Empower,
the first all women's NWA event, which was run by the
Mickie James,
the lovely Mickie James, current Impact Women's Champion. Also,
Nice
the
4-page spread about Empower in the women's 150 issue of
it was
Pro
a
Wrestling
great show.
Illustrated.
I know that
Very good show.
being her and Nick Aldis, a very lovely married couple, a bit of a power couple in wrestling, and certainly bringing that ability and sway and pull that they have to pull focus to the NWA, as a singular entity promotion,
Mhm.
which it hadn't been for the longest time. It was very much like the McDonald's franchise of wrestling. Like you could buy the NWA license and just be an NWA promotion.
Yep.
It wasn't like for the last only when I started getting involved with NWA, that's when the condensing really started to close in,
Mhm.
with California being like the real like home to it. And eventually, there was a lot of like power transfers and different, people getting in charge of what. But when Billy Corgan took over, everyone was like, well, that's odd.
Yeah,
And then it turns out, oh, wait, he absolutely knows what he's
he
doing.
knows what he's
And
doing.
he
Yeah.
really is really putting his all into it. And I love that. And I hope he
Can you
continues.
can you imagine how different the landscape of the wrestling business would be right now if Corgan had really been given a true shot with Impact?
Oh, absolutely.
If they had really let him do what he wanted to
If
do with
if
that
if it
company,
had been a
and
full
Dixie had
power
stayed out of the
transfer,
way.
yeah, if it had been
Yeah.
a full power transfer from Carter to Corgan, we would have absolutely been having Nick Aldis still be the Impact World Champion to
Yes.
this day.
Yep.
Like that's how I would have seen it, because
Yep.
obviously their relationship is so good, and he trusts to have that kind of relationship with him. And then we move it to September, and we had All Out in AEW in Illinois. Kenny Omega defeating Christian Cage to retain the AEW World Championship. That was the show that also saw the debut of Minoru Suzuki, Ruby Soho, Adam Cole, and Bryan Danielson, all on the same show with CM Punk's first professional wrestling match
Yeah.
in 7 years since leaving WWE.
So, as someone
You,
who was
sir,
there,
happened to be there.
I was there. I was in Hoffman Estates at that arena, and let me tell you, the beat down after the match that the Elite was giving to Christian and to Jurassic Express, everybody in that arena knew beyond a shadow of a doubt. We'd already seen Punk. We'd already seen Ruby Soho. We know Bryan Danielson is coming out to save Christian and to save Jurassic Express.
Right.
We know. So when Kenny cuts that promo about how there's no one in the business, alive or dead, who can stop them.
There's no one in the business who is be them retired, injured, or dead. Mainly that emphasis on that last one for just that little joke.
The lights drop out. Yes. The crowd knows beyond a shadow of a doubt that Bryan Danielson is coming out to save the day. And then it's all about the boom. Adam Cole's name shows up on the screen. The lights come up. The crowd explodes. I have never been a part of a pop like that. Granted, I have not been to a show the quality of All Out. As I mentioned, I went to WrestleMania 27. The Rock got a good pop in the Georgia Dome. Nothing like what Adam Cole got in this moment. Cole comes down to the ring, confronts Kenny, super kicks Jungle Boy in the face.
And that's the thing. Nobody noticed he came out the heel entrance.
Yep.
He's wearing Jordans.
He is Adam Cole. Super click. Adam Cole, the Elite Adam Cole, the one that Hangman Page maybe murdered, and whose blood he's scrubbing off his boots in the opening to BTE for a very long time. Adam Cole comes out to save the day.
Technically, it was Kenny Omega.
It was
They
Kenny,
killed him with a poison energy drink.
Yes, but Page thought it was him for a long time. Cole super kicks Jungle Boy's head off. The crowd loves Jungle Boy.
Mhm.
Jungle Boy, one of the pillars we mentioned before, one of the most over babyface acts in AEW. Cole turns on him.
Immediately.
rejoins the Elite. The crowd hates what Kenny is doing, but freaking loves Adam Cole is there. Okay, so we didn't get Danielson, but this is the best alternative we could have got until they can go and
But
get
wait,
Danielson. That's fine. And then dun, 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 Flight of the Valkyries starts playing, and you thought the Cole pop was loud. The arena shakes when Bryan Danielson comes to the ring.
it is.
It's
insane.
Legitimately, this happened 3 months and a couple
Yep.
weeks ago. I have goosebumps right now
Feeling about
just
it, yeah.
describing what it was like to be there in that moment. That was like my wedding was great. I have had some fantastic life experiences, but
I'm sorry.
In-
when you
in-
lead with,
in-
my wedding was great.
in the top 5 experiences of my 39 years on this planet, in addition to, meeting my nephews for the first time, and right up there is being in the Now Arena in Hoffman Estates, Illinois, when Flight of the Valkyries starts playing and being among those people. Oh my God. Just the coolest thing.
Well, it was again another game changer. Like that show really made everyone go, we can't put any doubt on AEW right now. Like think about this. You've got Ruby Soho is doing great right now. She absolutely could be the inaugural TBS champion.
She's one of the final
But that's
3.
the thing. That's a good thing, is that it could be, which means
Could be.
there's no guarantees.
That's right.
And I love that about that. Bryan Danielson could be AEW champion.
He could be.
At the premiere of their TBS show. Could be.
Could be.
Adam Cole could be turning on the Super Click. We don't know.
Be.
CM Punk could be turning heel in some way. We don't know.
Could be.
There are no guarantees with these things, and that's what's refreshing about it.
But I do want to point out, AEW does the thing that we've all complained that WWE doesn't do, which is they build up a story. They build up the story to where, okay, this has to be the moment where X happens.
Right. The logical conclusion based on what you've already done.
On the show, even though everybody in that arena knows Bryan Danielson's going to show up. Everybody in that arena knows Punk is going to show up. Everyone in that arena knows this is finally the night that Hangman is going to beat Kenny to win the title.
Right.
And then Danielson shows up. Punk shows up. Hangman wins the world title.
Yeah.
They give you that payoff that you're wanting. It's not just fan service, although there is an element to that. But we have spent the last 20 years with wrestling promotions building up a story, building up a story, building up a story. And then out of a desire to anything can happen, doesn't give us what we want. It doesn't give us the conclusion to the story they've been telling. They just change to a different story.
And it's
which
not
is
even
not
like
how
what we
storytelling
want.
works.
Yeah, exactly. It's not even like it's just what we want. It's like, no, you set this up an A to B to C.
Mhm.
And clearly we're just waiting for C because we know that C is going to be very satisfying based on the A and the B that you've built.
And then once C happens, you can then move on to D, E, and F.
Right.
You can the story can still go there, but you have to hit the steps of the story as you go. You can't jump from A to Q. Like there's 15 letters in the middle that you just skipped over because
you do A to B to B to B to B to B.
16-time world champion John Cena never gave us the heel turn. But when they did it with Roman, what happened?
It worked.
Great television.
And he was booed for the right reasons.
Yes.
Because
it's not that hard.
And it's not like people always say, like, oh, they're just going to cheer at him now that he's heel. I'm like, no.
They
Fans
will
are actually
eventually.
fans will cheer because they are behind them because they feel that that person has a point.
Yes. Yes.
If you're going to cheer for a bad guy, then they're not really a bad guy, as it were. They're just
That's right.
like, we're totally down with what you're doing. We're you know, it's just like
Mhm.
you're just the way you come across, and
Yep.
that's what can bleed into the natural like switch, as it were.
Yes.
People say, "Well, why are people booing Cody?" I'm like, "Well, here's the thing. Not everybody really is booing Cody all the time. This is
No,
true. He does get mixed reactions.
he does.
Is he playing into the idea that more people lately are booing him? Absolutely.
100%.
Absolutely. And I do
Yes.
understand that now, that more now than when it initially was starting to happen.
Mhm.
And you spelled it out for me actually perfectly. But again, well, we'll move on to that. Uh, I know that at Extreme Rules, Roman Reigns defeated the Demon Finn Balor. The Demon came back, and it turned out he was gone away for so long because he was actually a flopping fish. Uh, that was weird.
Uh-huh.
Dynamite and Rampage Grand Slam. Okay.
There we go. Here's the
But
good
I
stuff.
will I want to get to those first. But also we had Christian Cage defeated Ace Austin, retained the Impact World Championship. Great match. Don't undersell those.
Yeah, that Victory Road match, very, very
Yeah, the 70th anniversary of Japanese Pro Wrestling happened, which was a huge show in Tokyo.
good.
All
Yes.
Japan, DDT and Noah, Dragon Gate, M Pro, Zero One, all were there, and they did
2AW, Big Japan, and New Japan sent
yeah
people.
the Japan Pro Wrestling Alliance in Kurikan Hall, the most historic building in Japan next to the Tokyo Dome
Yep.
for professional wrestling. Uh, it was great. It was a just amazing like all-star show.
Mhm.
I do suggest finding it where you can. Um, the International Women's Grand Prix of Wrestling happened at CMLL,
Mhm.
where it was headlined by Team Mexico versus Team International. The Death Before Dishonor in Philly happened, where Bandito defeated Brody King, Demonic Flamita, and EC3. And you and I had watched that show individually, and we got back to each other like, "Did you can see that show?" Like that show was just that main event, even though
Yes.
it wasn't in front of anybody, was like it's rare to me for me to like get invested in one in a multi-man match because
Mhm.
a lot of the times you could be like they're going to do something and then they're going to be moved out of the way so that
Yep.
other guys can do something and then they're going to be and like it just kind of like shifts back and forth.
Yep.
Somehow like this particular match they were finding ways to still all be in the focus without it just
Mhm.
being a giant schmoz.
Yep.
And a credit to all of them. Bandito, I'm glad he's feeling better. I'm glad he's able to be back wrestling full time. I was scared for his health. I'm glad
Uh-huh.
that things have moved on. Brody King, it seems, is signed with AEW.
It would appear that way.
Demonic Flamita, I really hope gets like some North American second chance. One of these guys who I just feel like could be, I would love to see Flamita versus Ray Phoenix. Like this is the kind of like
Yes.
insane match I could see. Zach, if you could make your own stable in any wrestling company, who would it be and what would it be called? I do
Ooh.
have an answer for that, but I will save it towards the end because it is a prediction I have for next year.
Aha.
Um, so Grand Slam, we see the build up to a show. First of all, AEW looked amazing in that arena. I've
Yes.
been to Arthur Ashe Stadium just to see events. It is mind blowing to me that nobody decided to do like a real big televised pro wrestling show in that arena. It is perfect for it. Um, and it was perfect for that night. It was filled to the brim, like 360 all around the whole place, practically. And I have never seen a match like this before where before the two individuals in the match lock up or even begin to wrestle, the crowd is on their feet in a standing ovation. Uh, and that is exactly what happened with Bryan Danielson and Kenny Omega. They went the full 30 minutes. And in a match where, honestly, like people use the term 50-50 mostly for negative ways of looking at a booking of like, well, they won, they lost, they won, they lost. What's the
Mhm.
point? This 50-50 was perfectly used for them because it literally could have gone either way, but it was a true stalemate because neither guy was going to relent to the other.
Nope.
And the match could have had no time limit and it would still be going on today
Yes.
because neither Bryan Danielson nor Kenny Omega in that incarnation that we were seeing in that little window of time was going to in any way let the other one get the upper hand. So the logical conclusion to that match was there isn't going to be a winner.
Mhm.
It is the immovable object versus the
Unstoppable force.
unstoppable force, truly made right there. And I get what when someone says, "Oh, that match had no finish." You
Yes, it did.
It did because there was no winner because it met the time limit.
Mhm.
Therefore, the match finished because of the rules and because of the way that everything had been set up.
Mhm.
When we say that there's no finish to a match, it usually means that someone ran in and gave like a DQ, or there was just no like there was no resolution to it within
Whenever
the
you're
confines of it.
Yes. When you're reading results from a show on, say a Wrestling Observer newsletter
Yeah.
or a ProWrestling.net or a Gerwek or whatever source you use to read your match results, when the result of the match is listed as, like, for example, well, let's use this as an example. Instead of a time limit, you could have seen something like Kenny Omega and Bryan Danielson wrestled to an apparent no contest in 21-17
Right.
due to interference from the Young Bucks. An apparent no contest is what we see way too much, where there's a
Yes.
match and then there's just not a match anymore.
Right. Like all
No,
of a sudden,
the
then
bell
the Young Bucks
rings.
decided to throw themselves in the middle of the match. Like
Yeah,
there's no real rhyme or reason as to why at that point in the match they decided to throw themselves in
yep.
and then just the ref decides, well, this is over.
This is the end of it. The bell rings, no winners announced,
No.
no disqualifications announced.
No, it
It's
becomes
just
an angle versus an actual
yes.
match.
Whereas this match built to its finish, the finish being a time limit draw, which then also great question, Zach. That will be answered when we get into our 2022 predictions.
And the match
finish
finish,
vote.
though, for this one actually feeds into
Another match 3 months later.
Danielson's current run
Yep.
against Hangman because Hangman very close to what Kenny Omega couldn't do
Yes.
and would actually going to beat Bryan
If
Danielson.
that match had been 60 minutes and 15 seconds long, Hangman would have successfully defended the title. So
And the reason we say that is because the finish was clearly being set up.
Mhm.
It was right there. We all
He-
knew that if he
he
hit that
hit-
move,
he hit
would
the
have been over.
buckshot, but couldn't get him pinned in time.
Yeah.
Like that's
whereas
why
with
I
Kenny
don't get
and Bryan, they were still fighting.
It was still
while
50-50.
it was happening towards that end. There was no way either man was giving another moment. So
That's
that's
why
what I love about it. I love that. I love
That's
that.
why I don't get the online criticism of this. I see it all over Twitter where they're like, but that just shows that nobody's better than anybody. It's like, that's not true.
No. You
One-
got to look at it in the grand scheme of things.
You have to sign Danielson. Like,
Yes.
it's not putting over a WWE guy. No, it's the best independent wrestler of a generation who then went to WWE, against all odds, became one of the 5 biggest stars of the last 10 years. Let go because they didn't know what to do with him. And now of course you sign Bryan Danielson, just like of course you sign CM Punk, of course you sign Kyle O'Reilly when you have the chance to. Of course you sign these people because you'd be a fool not to.
If you've got a young AAA guy who's hitting 502 regularly on a season, you sign him to your team.
Yes.
You pay what he's worth because you know that they're gonna make that money for your team and they're gonna give you wins.
In 92, 93, whenever it was that the NFL started free agency and Reggie White's contract with the Eagles expires, you don't blame the Packers for signing an old Eagles guy. They signed Reggie White. They took the best available player because he's an iconic defensive player. He's a Hall of Famer. Of course, you want that in your locker room. Just like, of course, you want Punk. Of course, you want Danielson. But Danielson, who, again, remember, 6 months earlier, main evented WrestleMania. Kenny Omega, the world champion, the belt collector, goes 30 minutes with somebody that the rest of the world outside of AEW's
non-title match
considers one of the best in the world. That puts Omega over. It puts Danielson over in the AEW fan base's eyes, even though he was already there. And it now means that whoever can beat Danielson can do what Kenny Omega couldn't.
Exactly.
So 2 months later, when Danielson and Page go past the 30-minute mark, go past the 45-minute mark, at 59 minutes and 50 seconds, when Page hits the buckshot and is going for the pin, but time elapses, it means that Page was about to do what Omega couldn't.
And it also means that when Omega comes back and he realizes he has nothing to lose because there's nothing on the line but the ability to beat Danielson, that in itself becomes a storyline.
Yes.
And everything feeds into each other.
Plus, he's got the built-in, he wants his belt back. He's the belt collector who has no belts. El Hijo del Vikingo is now the AAA Mega Champion because
which we called the
title,
which we called, by the way.
We called a few weeks back on the show. Yes, he lost the Impact title to Christian. He lost the AEW World title to Hangman. You saying he has nothing to lose is spot on. He is coming back with a vengeance and an angry Kenny Omega, a world champion Hangman Page who almost beat Bryan Danielson, and a Bryan Danielson who has gone a combined 90 minutes against the last two AEW world champions. How is that not brilliant storytelling, setting up three equally matched forces all gunning for the same world title?
I'm already hyped.
I don't get it how people don't understand that. It's the most basic wrestling storytelling. It's wrestling 101. And people are criticizing it because there wasn't a finish. Yes, there was.
There
were two finishes.
Effect.
Yes,
it really is like a conditioning effect.
It's because they've spent the last 2 decades being fed apparent no contest.
You got to expand your horizons, folks.
Yes,
you just got to. There's other stuff out there that don't be fed pilled.
No, right.
don't be fed pilled. So we move into
TMLL had their 88th anniversary show.
Yeah, that's true. And that also happened.
But it was CMLL, so a tree fell in the forest and nobody was around to hear it.
In October, we had Alexander Hammerstone. Alexander
Hammerstone. Never gonna be champion.
He beat Jacob Fatu to hold both the World Heavyweight and National Openweight Championship.
He was not throwing away the shot that he earned by winning the
Battle
Riot.
Not at all. And it was a great match too. And the beginning of the end for
Country Unit.
Contra Unit, yes, the most dominating stable, as it were, at the time in MLW, which is now since dissolved due to Fatu realizing, I don't need these guys. Yep. I never needed these guys.
Mads Kruger was more of a albatross than he was a help.
And again, I keep saying this every time, but don't sleep on MLW, guys. If you liked Lucha Underground, they have basically brought it back with Azteca Underground.
Much, yeah.
And it is...
they have Dario Cueto.
Sorry, Cesar.
Cesar Duran.
Cesar Duran. I have found my new temple. I was so hyped when I heard him do that promo. AEW had their second anniversary show, which was where Adam Page came back and... won his shot to be for the AEW World Championship.
He was the Joker in the casino ladder match,
which are still the casino matches bother me at AEW because somebody could have won that match before he showed up. Like that's it's like you can't do a battle royal ladder match.
Yeah, it works for battle royals. The casino battle royales work.
And at the same time, the casino battle royale, why not just have people come in one at a time? Why does it have to be 4 entrances? It just because like you could easily do 30 spots. Just do the Royal Rumble, but with a roulette wheel, you know? And then the wild card is number 31 or whatever, or number 30.
Well, see, that could be interesting, because now I'm
Why not just do
envisioning
it that way?
all of the casino gimmicks that AEW likes to do, but you have a legit wheel up on the big screen with everybody's faces on it, and they give it a spin, and then it's like, oh,
and
that's
just less. And instead of like,
it's
obviously,
Nick Jackson. And
yeah, it's like you can't have like repeats, obviously. So every time you see the wheel, it's just less and less faces, and it's more of who's left.
Now it's got 27 spokes on it. Now it's got 26.
I know it's a bit of as a graphics person, I know how much of a nightmare that could be, but you can pull it off. It's not that hard.
Well, and it's not like it's a legit thing that's happening. Like, in advance the order of entry. So you would just design a different animation. Yeah, it's not like you have to, oh, God, now I have to build this one, but I can't include Phoenix because he's already come down.
Right.
So I got to delete him, and then I got to expand all the puzzle pieces.
It's a work. We know.
They know.
Stardom had its 10th anniversary show, the Osaka Dream Cinderella, which I love. I love Japanese wrestling to English translation shows names.
And if you have not watched Stardom,
what are you doing?
You're looking for a place to start. You're looking for a place to start, and you just want somebody to get behind. Look up Utami Hayashishida.
Yes,
she actually PWI, in I think a really impressive, really smart move, put her number 2 on their women's 150 this year.
She is a 2-time goddess of Stardom.
Yes.
So that's the level of like, that is, if you want to know what what a promotion likes to push their talent, look at how they name their championship.
Yes. Yeah, the titles in Stardom, of course, short for World Wonder Ring Stardom, which is the full name of the promotion. They have all of their titles are sort of there's the World of Stardom Championship, which is their world title.
It is Magic Girl Wrestling, like full and through.
Basically,
and I love it. I am here for it.
They've got the Wonder of Stardom Championship, which is basically the Intercontinental title.
Yes.
The Goddess of Stardom, which is their tag team titles that Hayashishida has held, you said 3 times?
Yes.
There's the Artist of Stardom Championship, which is their trios title that Mike Natsupoi and Himeka have right now. And then the High Speed Championship, which is basically the X Division. In Stardom, and then they've got a Future of Stardom title, which is like an up and comer, kind of like a Young Lions Cup kind of thing. But very, Japanese wrestling is very kind of structured in that way, where there's like a definite hierarchy. So Hayashishida has worked her way up from the tags, from the trios, to being the World of Wonder Championship, a title she's held for over 400 days. Maybe right now the best women's wrestler in the world, and most American wrestling fans don't know her because she's never worked for WWE or AEW.
I truly hope that the North American mindset of especially how Japanese wrestlers get pushed and treated in North American wrestling shifts. I know, granted, there are outlying circumstances for that to be a bit of a difficult issue. But with the talent that are used in the rosters that they're in now, I hope, and especially with AEW, I do hope that, again, this goes all into my hopes for next year too, but I do hope that treatment gets changed a bit. This was also the month that NXT 2.0 really started to get like, hey, this is what we're all about. And the one and only talent that I still think will be the one to survive, Braun Breaker, the man who is known for a minute as Rex Steiner, which is such a perfect name because it's basically his last name turned into a full name. For those of you who don't know, Braun Breaker is the son of Rick Steiner, the mad dog-faced gremlin, or however you want to call him. Although he does more, although they talk about Scott a lot more when they're alluding to Braun. And their real last name is Reichsteiner or Rex Steiner. Yeah, very German. So they turned it into Rex Steiner, which is awesome.
Great name.
I mean, it's like basically King Steiner. Like, it's just like,
Yes.
it just works. But all of a sudden, he shows up on the very first episode of NXT 2.0. Hey, LA Knight, I'm Braun Breaker. What?
And a million wrestling fans sigh.
And you and I were watching it live, and we were going, what?
Yeah.
What is Braun Breaker? Like, you
Braun
just fired
Breaker.
a Braun. Like, you needed a new one.
Braun
Breaker.
Also,
But,
should point out around that same time, the show that takes place in a country that shall not be named ever on television. This year's Crown Jewel was actually kind of good.
It was kind of good.
It was not a. It was not a. It was
That's
one
weird.
of the best
weird to
WWE
say.
shows of the year.
It's really
was-
weird to say.
There has never been. None of these shows have ever been good.
No,
None of the
they've been
Saudi
so.
Arabian shows have ever been good.
Sorry,
I enjoy.
You cut out a little bit there.
Oh, sorry. I ironically enjoy the Greatest Royal Rumble.
Yeah, I mean, it has one of the best.
The Titus
moments.
O'Neil entrance.
Titus World Slide is
Yeah.
by and far one of the best moments of his career.
And when they randomly bring out that sumo wrestler because whatever Sheik it was that was paying for WWE to come, thought really wanted Yokozuna and didn't understand that
Did not
Yokozuna
realize
was
that
dead.
Yokozuna was dead.
And so they just had to give him a different sumo guy.
And Braun Breaker wins, and Braun Strowman wins his first championship belt at that show.
He does
And
indeed.
we never see it again.
Nope. And it's a terrible show.
Is he technically a Royal Rumble winner because of that show?
I believe he is counted among the Royal Rumble winners, yeah.
But it's the greatest Royal Rumble.
But it's the greatest Royal Rumble.
So
but that show, Roman against Brock, really good main event.
Great main
Becky,
event.
Bianca, and Sasha, really good match. Big E and Drew McIntyre, the King of the Ring and Queen's Crown finals, both very good. Goldberg and Lashley happened.
It did. It
Edge
really
against
did.
Seth Rollins, that Hell in a Cell match, one of the best matches WWE did all year. RK Bro against AJ and Omos. Mansoor and Mustafa Ali. Just a top to bottom, a really good show. They just, unfortunately, it happened to happen in
over there.
Yes.
Basically, they could not say until the very last second that it was in the city of Riyadh.
Yes.
And they waited and waited and waited until day of the show.
Yes.
Man. You know what also is weird is like when I read Raw season premiere happened in October. I'm like, what? The show doesn't end.
Yeah.
How is there a season?
When was the finale?
What storyline did I leave on a cliffhanger to hope that the season premiere would pick up? See, at least like with Lucha Underground, there was a season finale.
Yes.
And then you're like,
Lucha was the end of the season. And then
wait.
there would be a few months, and then they'd come back.
And then he came back, and you were like, oh, okay, cool. And you still knew what was going on.
Yep.
I think also their lawsuit is being settled soon with AAA. So
I
hope that happens.
Jake Hager can then defend the Lucha Underground title in
I think so.
AAA.
Or Jake, what was he called there?
Oh, what was he called there? Okay, that's gonna bug me. I'm gonna look that up. Yeah.
Jake Hager in Lucha Underground was known as, I think he was just Jake Hager.
I think he was Jake Hager, but he had a nickname.
He had to have some sort of nickname. God, what was it? Oh, it's gonna bother me now. He was the Savage Jake Strong.
That's what it was.
That was it. Jake Strong. Yep. Okay.
Yep.
Speaking of AAA, Johnny Mundo may be returning.
That's right.
Now that Morrison is gonna be the first person that
Evo Del Vikingo
is going to defend against.
I believe so. Yeah, that was my understanding.
Well, good on you, John Morrison. Johnny
Drip Drip.
Johnny Mexico, I guess. I don't know. Like, he just takes that gimmick all over the place. I would love to see Johnny Elite. I really would, just for like a fun mini run, just to piss people off.
I think he should go by Johnny Worldwide, but I think he's going to be Johnny Mundo. But I think he should be Johnny Worldwide.
Johnny Worldwide does sound great
because the full name of AAA is Lucha Libre AAA Worldwide. So
Johnny
if he called
Worldwide would
himself
be
Johnny
nice.
Worldwide, that would one play to the name of the promotion, but also be like, hey, look, it's
Whatever
international
gimmick I'm
superstar
in.
John Hennigan.
Yeah.
I'm Johnny Worldwide.
Yeah, because he has been all over the world.
Yeah.
In November last month, which still feels like forever ago.
Yeah.
MLW had War Chamber.
War Chamber.
War Chamber, which was pretty good. I watched. I saw it. That was where we had the end of Contra Unit.
Yes.
Where Jacob Fatu and Mads Kruger just could not take it anymore.
Nope.
I loved the name of Hammerstone's team, the Hammerheads.
The Hammerheads.
Yeah. EJ Naduka, Batanza Duran,
who's Jeff Cobb in a mask.
It was great. He pulled the mask off, and he had a fantastic showdown with Fatu. Yep. Richard Holiday, who again I feel, if for any reason the Pinnacle does not continue, or if it does decide to change up, a reuniting of Hammerstone, Holiday, and MJF, in All Elite would be fantastic. I mean, it's naturally a trios, but then MJF has to go and say MJFTR, and I'm like, just keep that name forever.
Yeah, no, you gotta keep that.
How dare you?
They gotta sign Ron Killing so they can have MJFTR Truth.
Go home. just
okay. Bye, everybody.
Show's over. I will get to. We had obviously
War Chamber, and Savio Vega was the other member.
Savio Vega was in there as well.
Who was not the first wrestler I ever saw live, but he was in the very first show I ever saw live was In Your House 3 in Saginaw, Michigan. That was the night that Shawn Michaels and Diesel beat Yokozuna and the British Bulldog, who was filling in for Owen Hart. But then Diesel pinned Owen because Owen ran in. Apparent no contest, but no, there was an actual finish. Anyway,
it wasn't even my car.
But it wasn't even my car. In the opening match, Savio ended the undefeated streak of Waylon Mercy. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But yeah, that was the very first televised match I ever saw. There had been a couple of dark matches beforehand, including Fatu beating some Greenwich Blue Blood guy that I wonder whatever happened to.
Probably nothing really came out of that.
It was supposed to be a pay-per-view match between Triple H and Luger, but then, Nitro happened.
Yeah, I was going to say. That didn't work out, did it?
The show was September 24th, 1995, and we all remember what happened on September 4th, 1995.
You know what's crazy is that we're getting those like Luger Nitro moments again.
Yeah.
Like just the fact that they're showing up, like,
yep,
it's insane.
Yeah. And it's not like, oh, what's Tito Ortiz doing in the Impact Zone? It's like, it's legitimately like, holy shit, that's Bryan Danielson.
Are you seeing this? Like, New Japan had some New Japan USA shows, I should say more specifically, had some really impressive outings in Philadelphia and Los Angeles with their showdown shows and their cross-country tours.
Minoru
Suzuki this year alone had like his US debut, basically, like his US coming out, and was just like, by the way, I murder people in the ring. Just want to let you all know. So who's left?
You've probably heard of me.
I have hurt all your favorites, and I will continue to do so.
You better play my entire damn entrance.
Yes, if you did not know the words Kaze ni Nore by the end of it, you will now. We had some CMLL versus New Japan shows in Mexico City.
Yep.
Impact had two big things. Well, actually, I forgot to mention previously that Josh Alexander finally defeated Christian Cage to win the Impact World Championship, only to be immediately upset by Moose, who turned in his a golden opportunity right there in front of Josh Alexander's family. The nerve to win the Impact World Championship right then and there in front of a shocked crowd. It was a great show, though. I did enjoy that one.
And that is a swerve that works.
Yes.
Because it, like Edge cashing in the Money in the Bank the first time, it's a logical extension of the story. It's not a swerve for swerve's sake.
There's always something like I always love the chase sometimes more than the run,
Mhm.
but it does
Yes.
depend on the person holding the belt with the run. I
Yes.
think that as great as Josh Alexander is, that
He's
moment
great.
meant so much more than like if Moose had won later or like
Yes.
like now Alexander has more so to prove
Mhm.
than just Christian Cage saying you're not quite on my level.
Yeah.
Now Alexander has, you took something from me,
That is mine.
embarrassed me,
Mhm.
and I will murder you because
You
of it.
You embarrassed me in front of Vanessa. He, um, and Alexander had
Pat
previously
Dooley should play Kingpin. Are we all in agreement here? Pat Dooley should be Kingpin. Okay.
he Alexander, we can't, not to be ignored. We talk about Moose cashing in. Alexander got his title shot against Cage because of what is it? Rule
Option
3,
C.
Option C. That's what it is. For the X
Cash in
Division
the X
title.
Division Championship and
Yep.
turn it in for a title shot.
Which he
Rarely, and
succeeded
that's
in.
the thing. It's not like one of those things where it's like, oh, it's this time of the year, so we
Mhm.
guess we use that rule. WWE
Nope.
with any gimmick pay-per-view they do. No, this was like, I'm going to use the rule that is used every now and then.
Yep.
And I like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it worked. It was good storytelling. And Alexander, if you're not watching Impact, Josh
Seriously,
Alexander
it
is
is not TNA of old.
it's not TNA
by
anymore.
any means, is it?
It is not at all.
It's
Josh
fun still.
Alexander.
There's still some fun, silly stuff that
Yeah.
they do every now and
Oh,
then.
sure.
But
Yeah.
like
Anything with
it's
Johnny
enjoyable.
Swinger.
Oh God.
Uh,
Rest in
the
peace, Swingers Palace.
Wrestle House. But Josh Alexander, we were talking about, great tag teams the last 10 years. One that kind of flies under a lot of people's radar because it happened primarily in Impact was the North.
Oh yeah.
Josh Alexander and Ethan Page were a phenomenal tag team.
Absolutely.
And then Page going to AEW and leaving Alexander behind was maybe the best thing that could have happened to Josh Alexander, because he is now a legit headliner in Impact Wrestling, because he's had to evolve his already excellent in-ring work into more character work than he was doing with the North. Because I mean, when you're in a tag team with Adam Page is going to soak up a lot of that attention.
Ethan Page.
Ethan Page. I'm sorry.
There's a lot of pages.
Have I been saying Adam the entire time? I do. Of course.
There's
all
Adam
ego,
Page. There's Ethan Page. There's Brian Cage. There's Christian Cage. There's
Dallas Page.
Diamond Dallas Page. And
there's Kimberly Page. Oh, I missed Kimberly Page.
Yeah. By the way, congrats DDP recently getting remarried. Congratulations.
Yes, that's right.
Adam Page, speaking of which, he defeated Kenny Omega to finally win the World Championship. A 2-year story.
Yes.
Which was amazing. In Minneapolis, Minnesota, Adam Page finally fulfilled the destiny he had sought out since day one of the announcement of AEW coming to fruition. Mm-hmm. Where he even said, like, I don't even know if there's going to be a world championship, but I will become the first. He didn't, obviously.
He didn't. He lost. He made it to the finals.
Was very close. Everyone was like, clearly Adam Page is going to be, Chris Jericho is going to hold the mantle of you beat me so that you can be the legacy. And then they turn it around. Chris Jericho's career revitalizes. Yep. Adam Page then becomes the guy that we're like, oh, that was too good. We got to watch this guy. And you realize this was the plan the whole time.
And they spend 2 years building to this moment.
Tony Khan even said, I knew that the first handful of champions was going to be Jericho, Moxley, Omega, and then Page. He knew that was his first 4 champions. And that is unprecedented storytelling in the, because you could tell that Tony Khan is obviously a fan of Jim Crockett Promotions, Deep South, Mid-Atlantic, like all of that stuff comes into play with every single style of booking and usage of characters, and the way that he obviously loves stable-based wrestling, which is what AEW is becoming more and more. and it works because you
It's also
have
very Japanese in that regard,
yeah,
too.
you have so many different interconnecting storylines that can each dovetail into each other, come back around, uh, without becoming too formulaic.
Yep.
And it was such a I love the video package of, Dark Order running to help. Let's go help. Yeah, we're gonna go fight St. Page. Yeah.
Mhm.
Like it was just such a great like conclusion to a good story. Um let's see what else. Survivor Series in Brooklyn, New York. I am usually one to the when it comes to like what used to be the big five, now just big four, I guess, of
It's
Rumble,
really
Mania,
just yeah.
SummerSlam, and Survivor Series. Those are 4 shows of WWE I tend to never miss.
Mhm.
Survivor Series, I got bored. Like I hate to say this because it's usually sometimes they save all the stuff that they love to do. They keep fans around for those shows.
Mhm.
By the end of it, you can say whatever you want about WWE, but you're like, I usually leave those shows going, you know what, that was fun.
Mhm.
And then you think to yourself, like, damn, they got me again. This time
Yep.
around, I was just like, I don't feel like anything worthwhile happened.
Yeah.
And it's upsetting because I still like these talents.
Yes.
And that's the thing. It's like I don't hate on the talents that are in there.
No.
I don't at all. I
Okay.
think it's what is mind-boggling to me is that you literally have a talent roster of the best wrestlers that you can possibly have
Mhm.
that you have either conditioned to be that way or that are just naturally talented. And this is what you do with them.
This is what
This
you
is
do with
how
it.
you presented them. And there's still a
This
million of you out there who watch it every week to
this
make them
show,
still keep doing it.
I would argue at this point, WWE still has a big 4. Survivor Series is not part of it anymore. They still try and treat it like it because it is their second oldest pay-per-view.
Would
But
you say Money in the Bank? Yep.
Money in the Bank has
Money in the
surpassed
Bank
Survivor
replaced it.
Series as the new 4th head on Mount Rushmore. But
Probably.
Survivor Series, you talk about the depth of the roster, the strength of the roster. On this show, Shinsuke Nakamura, Damian Priest, Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair, Seth Rollins, Finn Balor, Kevin Owens, Austin Theory, Bobby Lashley, Drew McIntyre, Jeff Hardy, Xavier Woods, Sheamus, Baron Corbin, Ricochet,
Here's the thing.
Randy
I like
Orton,
Baron Corbin.
Riddle.
I think that Baron Corbin has a place in WWE, and it's never been with whatever they've given
They
him.
just can't figure it out.
They
Wow,
just
what it
can't
is.
figure it out.
That's probably unfair. My criticism of Corbin is more so with the way that he has been dealt.
I'm sure that the guy could be over like gangbusters if they gave him something that he actually looked like he wanted to do.
He was over in NXT when he was doing the like 7-second squashes, when the crowd would chant the count for how long the match had been going as his match was going. Yeah. He was so overdoing that. But the aforementioned Usos, Bianca Belair, Rhea Ripley, Liv Morgan, Carmella, Queen Zelina, Sasha Banks, Shayna Baszler, Shotzi, Natalya, Toni Storm, Roman Reigns, and Big E, all on one show. How do you have a roster that good and put out a weekly TV show that bad?
It's just, it doesn't make sense to me.
Boggling.
And then this month happened.
And then the calendar turned again.
The calendar turned again.
As
and
it so often does.
That's the unfortunate thing about like sometimes with WWE's. I don't hate WWE. I am upset by WWE not being as good as I know it can be.
WWE
That's really
makes
what
us
it is.
Sad. That's yes.
Because I know that it can put on a good show. And I know that the talent in the roster has the ability to do so. It's the way that they have made themselves into essentially a content factory that
You're the circus.
bothers me. Yeah. It's just annoying.
Yeah.
But then it allows me to expand my horizons, as it were, and get to see like international wrestling, more independent wrestling. Now
3 weeks ago when AAA had Triplemania Rahia 2 with that 5-way match for the vacant mega championship.
El Hijo de Vikingo, Samurai del Sol, Jay Lethal, Bobby Fish, and Bandito.
Yeah.
I mean, that is just money anywhere. If you're like a hardcore wrestling fan, you are watching that main event.
Yes.
Thank you, Samurai del Sol, for deciding to still be a wrestler despite the lucha house party stuff that you had to go through. You know, hey man, I'm on his side. Can you believe when he was actually first brought into NXT, he was like a techno dancer, like he just had like light switches and stuff. Like that was his thing. I don't know what they were gonna try and do with that.
Nope.
Yeah.
But that, I mean, the rest of that show, that Triple Mania Regia, also had our favorite Psycho Clown in a trios match,
Our
teaming
boy.
with Pagano and Cain Velasquez against LA Park, Rey Scorpion, and Taurus. That killer ladder match between FTR and the Lucha Bros.
Ooh.
Dragon Lee and Dralistico against Laredo Kid and Willie Mack. Puma King, Sam Adonis, and DMT Azul against Dave Murder Clown and Chessman. I love Dave the Clown. The jumping ship from CMLL to AAA, Nueva Generacion Dinamita, our boys Cuatrero, Sansón, and Forastero show up in AAA and become the
If
number
this
one
show
contenders.
doesn't teach you Spanish and Japanese after watching as many as we've done and what we will continue to do, then we have failed.
Nueva Generacion Dinamita is in AAA now. Our favorite stable in Mexican wrestling is now in the big leagues now. And they just recently won the trios titles. So
that's right.
They are now the AAA trios champions.
They're dripping in gold.
Yep.
The gold
as
prophecy.
well they should be. Cuatrero, Forastero, Sansón, the best trio in Mexico. I was not going to say the best trio in the world because they're still an elite and they're still an undisputed era. And I guess they're still technically a New Day, even though they're on separate brands.
To a degree. Mike Knox came back to pro wrestling and
he did indeed.
Tried to take down Trevor Murdoch in Atlanta. Did not go down as well as he'd hoped it to go.
Nope.
We had
War Games.
Proper War Games. We had, of course, Team 2.0 of Braun Breaker, Carmelo Hayes, Grayson Waller, and Tony D'Angelo. How you doing? Versus, of course, the founding of Team NXT's Black and Gold, Tommaso Ciampa, Johnny Gargano, Pete Dunne,
and there from day one,
LA Knight, who's been there from day one. Oh boy,
or also not,
or not, yeah. Honestly, that was a good show. That was actually pretty entertaining. I do think that Braun Breaker needs to learn how to use bolt cutters a little better. That was embarrassing.
Should have got a crash course. It was a little reminiscent of our boy Hager / Swagger, trying to pull down the Money in the Bank briefcase at was it Mania 26? I don't remember what year that was that he won it, but where it took him a little bit of time to get that briefcase.
And we saw also in Ring of Honor the final battle. This was the final ROH event until apparently, according to the company owners, until April, which they are saying is still a when and not an if.
Yep.
We'll have to see it to believe it. I'm not sure what is going to be happening. It's certainly not going to be Ring of Honor that we know now or have known. And then again, it wasn't the Ring of Honor that we had seen before. I mean, it went through a lot of evolutions, but it's a very big drop. But Jonathan Gresham left as a main event winner, defeating Jay Lethal for the classic Ring of Honor World Championship, I guess they would say. It's weird because they're both World Championship belts, but they're both recognized as being held. And I guess Gresham is like an interim champion, as it were, if that's the case. Gresham has started his own promotion called Terminus, which is very pure wrestling focused, if a very even more so focused way. Gresham had an amazing 2021,
really good,
an amazing 2021. I truly hope that his Terminus promotion is exactly what he hopes it to be. MJF became the 3-time winner of that beautiful Diamond ring, defeating Dante Martin. And, you know, I don't know if they need to do it again next year, to be honest. Like,
Yeah.
how many are we? I think you've won the extent of how many times that ring can be won.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I think, yeah, I think getting it to a three-peat is a good stopping point.
yeah,
I do want to talk a little bit about Winter is Coming, though, because we were talking about how AEW has been really good about giving us what we expect, giving us what we want. Winter is Coming is one of the first major AEW shows I can think of where not much really happened.
no, and I
Like,
think that is
everybody
because of the precedent that they had set with last year.
Yes. And throughout 2021 of, when there's a big show, something big is going to happen. You're going to get Page finally winning the title. You're going to get Punk showing up in Chicago. You're going to get Danielson. You're going to get Ruby Riott. You're going to get Malachi Black.
Right.
Any number of these huge moments, all of them happen on these kinds of shows. So when you have one of these shows and give it the same name as the show where Sting showed up last year, and then at the end of the show, the lights drop out, which is always the indicator that somebody new is coming.
Well, and it's also because Tony Khan loves ECW, and
Tony Khan loves ECW,
that
and that
spot is such a
an old school
ECW
Sabu trick of Taz cutting a promo in the middle of the ring, lights go out, lights come back on, Sabu, and then a chair. And
that is one of my favorite standoff moments in wrestling,
leading up to Barely Legal. Oh my God, Sabu and Taz. That's one of my favorite feuds of all time, and it was 24 years ago.
Yeah, we're getting close to it being almost 30 years ago.
It's almost the silver anniversary of Sabu Taz. I mean, at this point, the feud had started. It culminated at Barely Legal in April, but
who is going to be the Sabu to Hook? That's what I want to know.
I don't know. I mean,
I have an idea. I have a few ideas, but we'll see.
Well, we'll get into that when we get to.
But we're forgetting about the most important show, and that is Throwdown 2.
Santa Claus against Sex Ferguson.
Defeated him by pinfall in a North Pole street fight for the IPWF International Commonwealth Television Championship.
Yes.
If you don't know what the Throwdown is, Impact Wrestling basically puts on like a parody show of old school 80s wrestling, where ridiculous gimmicks, very over the top, I mean, the fact that their main title is called the International Commonwealth Television Championship. It's Sex Ferguson, by the way, being Doc Gallows.
Doc Gallows, yeah. And Santa Claus was Willie.
Claus is Willie Mack.
It's
great.
What was the one that WWE was doing on the network for a while? Like Southpaw Regional Wrestling. This is but as a legit show.
Right.
Also on that show, Stomp in Paradise, which is Cardona and Myers as Gigi Broski and Brian Bone Crunchin beat the Russians, Sergei the Siberian, Madman Fulton, and the Stalingrad Strangler, Tony Gunn. Jazzy Fit Body beat Wanda the Werewoman.
If you're wondering what was up with Carl Anderson, I'm sorry, Chad Too Bad. Trey Miguel is also known as Bill Ding, which
Josh
by the
Alexander was Tim Burr.
I knew a wrestler named Bill Ding.
Really?
And it was I forget what he ended up calling himself, but yeah, Bill Ding. It was just like one of those really, it's so obvious. Why wouldn't you do it?
Yeah.
Sunday Morning Express with editor-in-chief Chris Sabin and ace reporter
Cardaniel
Dunn.
Well,
Frank the Butcher.
Frank the Butcher, which is Rhino.
Rip Razor.
Scovelli Jr., which is Josh Matthews. Quincy
and
Cosmos.
That's right. Members of was not the Wrecking Crew, but the but that Four Horsemen type girl, all women's group,
Mhm.
they had some internal combustion going
They
on.
did.
Jake something, which yes, that is his name,
Yeah, Jake
went
something,
with
yeah.
the even more generic Harry Hall.
Harry Hall against Badlands Bart.
I see, like, every now and then just to do something to just take the piss out of wrestling is
Yeah.
fun.
I would so much rather watch a throwback throwdown than another SmackDown food fight
Or old school Raw.
or old school Raw, which I'm all about the idea of old school Raw, bringing back the old guys,
But if you're
but
gonna do
just
it, commit.
commit and give us different old guys.
Yeah, it's the same
It's
15 people they
always
like.
it's always Jim Duggan. It's always it's
Yeah, it's
basically
always
if
gonna be
they've
Ron Simmons coming
it's
in and saying,
always Ron
"Damn."
Simmons. Damn. It's always Ted DiBiase coming to laugh at somebody.
By the way, Ted,
It's
you don't have to take the bumps. All right, man? I saw
no,
you in
stop
that
it.
show. You
Don't
don't
do it.
have to do it.
You don't
Please.
need to. Your bump card is full.
You're good,
You-
man. You're
You're
good.
good. You're good.
What would Jesus think?
Well, maybe that's not a great example
I
considering
don't
what
know.
Jesus
That's-
wound up doing.
But I do want to talk about, because I don't want to be on too long, because I could talk about, again, that I know it's the end of the year, we can talk about wrestling all day. But Holiday Bash happened, and we saw CM Surfer Punk Sting.
Yes. I
we
loved
saw
that.
we saw
That was so
CM
fun.
we saw Sting CM Punk face.
Sting M Punk.
Sting M
Yeah.
Punk, and then Darby Allin doing some I guess Owen Hart color tribute to his gear, I guess.
Yeah,
I wasn't
kinda.
sure. Against MJFTR, which is
MJFTR,
the
yeah.
trio that I need them to be for the rest of their lives. And
Bring in those
it was
trios titles, Tony.
it was a fun show. It was a very, very fun show. Then I watched Rampage this morning, earlier today, before we
I
went on
actually
the air.
haven't watched it yet.
I
feel
will
like a
say
bad wrestling
this.
fan, but I haven't actually had a chance
I will
to
say
watch
this.
it.
It made me sad at a Sammy Guevara promo I had seen on television prior to the show. I can't tell you what he said, but because it'll just, I mean, I don't know if you've read spoilers or anything, but like,
I know what happens in the main
okay.
event.
So
It's already updated
Guevara,
in Fire Pro.
Guevara on Friday television, I saw they were like doing like a what I hope for happens next year, or
Mhm.
like New Year's wishes or stuff like that, and it's Guevara saying defending this belt over and over again, and I'm like, oh no,
Oh, buddy.
and I was all right. Well, Cody Rhodes won the TNT Championship, and he did a speech at the end where he said, "I could feel it all the way in my heels."
Uh-huh.
And I think he said it after the show went off the air. I wasn't sure, but either way,
I think so. I haven't. Like I said, I haven't seen the show yet, but I do think that it was a for the live audience
Yeah.
thing that got recorded.
because at the end, Tony Khan said, "I have one more thing," and he sent in Hook, and they had a little square off. It was pretty cool. But there is still 1 week left of television in the world of pro wrestling.
Right.
There is
Anything can happen.
tomorrow. There is
Well,
you have Raw. We have the NXT 2.0. We have the last episode of Dynamite on TNT.
yes. The New Year's Smash.
As well as the Rampage Smash and SmackDown as well. And then 2022 Dose.
Well, and don't sleep on there's a big Stardom show this week too.
That's right.
Wednesday
Dream
night,
Queendom.
Haya Shishida defends the World of Stardom title against Shuri, who is another top 10 in the women's 150. That's going to be a good show. I'm hoping to be able to slip away long enough to watch it, but we are in beautiful Charlestown, Indiana, visiting family for the holidays.
There is a subscription
everybody's
service, by
vaxxed
the way,
and
called
boosted.
Stardom World is the
Yes.
subscription service where you can watch stuff. By the way, as we, of course, we endorse paying for your wrestling because you know it's the right thing to do.
The only time I will ever advocate for not is if it's just not possible.
Yeah, if there's absolutely no way that it streams in the US,
yes,
I won't say you should, but I'm not going to say you shouldn't.
because of the way, and in particular, and I know it's a legal issue that's being worked on, but there is no legal way to watch Lucha Libre AAA worldwide in the States currently.
I'm hoping
So,
that
hopefully that will
if this
change.
is settled between the
Yes.
parent company of Lucha Underground and AAA,
Yes.
with that whole "we own your North American rights in perpetuity" can go,
Yes.
and that'll be nice because maybe we'll
Yes.
actually have him be called, oh my god, El Cerro Viejo will not have to have a super long name.
Yes. He can go back to just being Pentagon Jr.
Just be
Yeah.
Pentagon.
And Ray Phoenix can just go back to being Phoenix.
Yeah, whatever. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter. I
Yeah.
mean, like, it's just for the sake of the talent being able to
Yeah.
work. If you
Well,
want to see these guys in North America, you're gonna want to hope that this stuff kind of gets moved aside.
yes, 100%. In
But
a
let's
fair and equitable way. I don't want it to just end for the
Right.
sake of ending because I want to see it. I want it to work out so that everybody gets what they want out of it
Right.
in a fair and equitable way. Before we get into 2022 and some of the other stuff, do we want to take another quick little
I
leg
think
stretch
that
break?
what we should do is I would like to save our year-end awards maybe for next time. And
Okay.
as just kind of like because I don't know, maybe something might change over the next week of my opinions
That's
of
true.
choices.
That's very true.
And I think though we should go to just some quick predictions for next year,
Yes.
especially with Zach's 2 questions, which actually are valid for
Very
our
good questions.
predictions.
Yeah.
So who do you have as a pick for who do you think is going to get a really big title opportunity and or run next year? And it could be anywhere you like.
So I'm hoping that Hangman has a nice long run. But I also know, as you mentioned, TK is a big old school, Mid-South JCP fan. So I'm envisioning sometime, it may even happen on the first CBS show, that Danielson, by hook or by crook, is going to somehow beat Page to take the world title, putting Page back in chase mode. Even though it sucks for Page as a character, I think it might be best for television to have him as the underdog fighting from underneath, trying to get back what was taken from him. So does that mean Kenny comes back and costs Hangman the title? Does it mean somebody debuts? Does it mean whoever Page's next feud is starts costing him the match? Is it Malachi Black and the new House of Black? Is it, is it Black making a play for the Dark Order, and so he feels like he needs to take Page out of the running to do that? Is it the debut of Wyndham Rotunda? Is it, whatever it is that's going to be next for Page? I don't know that Page is at his current status is at a point where he's going to be like so he beats Danielson, and then he beats MJF, and then he beats Kenny, and then whatever. I feel like his first reign is going to be a short one, leading to another, not 2 years long, but another chase, culminating in another big cathartic title win. So I'm thinking Danielson is probably the next AEW champion, just because he's Bryan Danielson, and there's probably nobody in the world right now better than he is.
Who better than Danielson?
Nobody. Canyon, but
yeah. I would like to see. I got a few in terms of, if we're just speaking specifically championships.
Mm-hmm.
My biggest question for next year is who's going to be the one to defeat Roman Reigns, because that's going to be a big deal. I think they should be very careful and not hotshot anything, but it is WWE, so you never know. And it's tough because who have they really built up to be a credible threat other than Brock Lesnar?
Other than Brock. Yep.
And if it does happen to be Brock, I think the match will be good.
Yeah.
So it's weird. It's a weird, that's my biggest thing that I'm going to be watching, because the WWE Championship just goes all over the place. Yeah. I would love it for still to have been, as much as I love Big E, I really think that they kind of gave it to him a little too early with the whole Money in the Bank thing.
Mhm.
I like Bobby Lashley as champion. I really do.
Yeah.
I just think he has a credibility to him in the way, especially now that they're presenting him.
Yep.
So it's tough.
Well, and I mean, there's that big 4-way match coming up on the first Raw of the year
Yeah,
with the two of them, Owens and Rollins. Is that who the fourth is? I can never
I
remember if
think
it's
so.
Rollins or AJ. I think it's Rollins.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, that very well could also be the start of a new title reign. Going back to Zach's question about who do we want to get a world title run,
Braun Breaker.
I would love to see Xavier Woods complete
Yeah.
the New Day trifecta.
Yeah, you know what? Yes,
Let's keep building him up, which they're already doing a decent job of.
Oh yeah,
Granted, we're grading on a scale of how WWE has treated wrestlers of color over the years, but they are getting better. Big E
Yes.
has been on top of the wrestling world most of the year. I think Xavier Woods, if built correctly, if they continue to do what they've been doing with him and making him credible, he's my dark horse to beat Reigns. The king against the chief. They've already sowed those seeds a little bit. They've interacted a few times. They had a match that Reigns won, but Woods held his own. And Woods, he beat everybody to win the crown. He learned, in terms of WWE storyline, the two guys that he got, basically has spent his entire WWE career with are world champions. All three members of the Shield held world titles. Why not all three members of the New Day?
Make it happen. Make it happen.
I'm all about it.
Here's what I would like to
see. Do I
see.
think it'll happen? Probably not. Do I want to see it? Yes.
Yes, of course. I would like to see Eddie Kingston become the TNT champion. Honestly, though, I think he's world title ready. I really do. 100%. I don't know if it will happen next year, but I know that he's ready for it. Mm-hmm. Even if it's just like that run where it meets the storyline parameters, and then you have his defeat mean that much more once it's taken from him.
Like his feud with Mox when he first came in.
Right. I think that I could see any title change happening being worthwhile because they've made title changes count. What I really want to see is the introduction, of course, of the Trios Championship. And I would really like to see, would it kill you at AEW to have more than one woman's match on a show at a time, either at a pay-per-view or on television? I think that mainly has a lot to do with how they tape all of their content in a Wednesday taping. So I don't think you need Dark at this point. If you just shifted the show to become AEW Elevation, made it a YouTube exclusive series that tapes at Universal, that's fine. Do that. You're going to tire out a crowd if you keep doing it the way you do. And then Rampage is going to have those effects sweetened for audio.
Yep.
But it just give me a bit more of the women's divisions. Give me that trios title that I've been waiting for, that you've clearly built up for so long, and let that first trios champion either be the reunited Hangman and Bucks, or whatever, or Death Triangle.
If not MJFTR.
Oh no, never mind. I changed it. I take it all back. It has to be MJFTR. There's the only way. And NXT, I do think that that you just put the belt on Braun Breaker already. If you haven't thought about doing it, forget about Von Wagner. He's not gonna get over.
No,
just
Unfrozen Caveman Lawyer is not going to be your next NXT World I may be a simple caveman.
No, you just look like a simple caveman. There's a big difference. I think that WWE should sign Brian Cage. I think that they should sign. There's a handful of AEW talents that WWE could use better,
Mm-hmm.
in my opinion. Brian Cage being the top, I think you'd just be perfect for them.
Yeah.
Even if Powerhouse Hobbs showed up in WWE, I feel like they would love him over there.
Yes.
There's room for letting these homegrown talents move over to the other side or to just another
Mhm.
promotion in general, just
Yeah.
to let them breathe and let them develop more in different ways. Um,
Yeah. Well, because
you
it's
could even do
very
the same
clear.
with like FTR, even
Yeah.
like we were talking about once off air. Like, let FTR just have a little bit of a run wherever they want to go,
Yeah.
and then bring them
Let him
back.
let him go to Mexico
Yeah,
for an extended period of time and defend the AAA tag titles
yeah,
like they've been doing. They've been having really good matches in Mexico. It looks like they're building to them against Dragon Lee and Drilistico, which
yeah.
should be a really good match when it happens. Yeah, let them do it. Let them. They've beat the Bucks. They beat they beat the Lucha Bros. Let them let them spread their wings a little bit. This is what they wanted when they got out of WWE, was a chance to wrestle against the best tag teams in the world. They'd already done everything they could do in WWE. They wrestled and beat American Alpha. They wrestled and beat the Usos. They beat the New Day. Yeah, let them spread their wings. As far as we were talking about Brian Cage and Powerhouse Hobbs, Team Taz is very clearly at this moment designed to get Ricky Starks and Hook over.
Absolutely.
So Cage and Hobbs, who are both very talented big guys, are the odd men out.
Hmm.
And there's not really a spot for them anywhere higher on the card than where they currently are, which is a shame because Cage is one of the best big man wrestlers in the world and has been for years.
He's never been a talker. There's clearly
No,
that has always been his downfall for,
which is why
I
putting him
don't
with
mean it
Taz
in
was a
such
great
a
idea.
I don't mean it in such a detrimental way. I mean,
Yeah.
like, he's a great talent. Clearly, he's you can build stuff around him. I mean, he was
Mhm.
Impact World Champion. He was
He was the
Lucha
Lucha
Underground's
champion.
champion.
Yep.
There, you can have a show built around him.
Mhm.
I mean, his
Absolutely.
work in Pro Wrestling Guerrilla alone is just
Yes.
insane.
He's fantastic. But he doesn't fit in what AEW is doing right now.
He's Lesnar with, with just pure, just all presence,
Yeah.
all all in ring.
Mhm.
And he needs a Bill Alfonso, as it were. He needs a
Yeah.
Heyman. He
Mhm.
needs, like, let him have
Taz.
that voice. He had Taz, and they
Yeah.
just kind of, I don't know.
But it,
Uh,
it it became clear that, of this group, Ricky Starks is the star.
yes,
So the focus
yes,
shifted.
absolutely.
It was like the Nation. Like the
Yes,
Nation for a long time looked like it was like, oh, we're gonna get D'Lo Brown over. This guy D'Lo on the underside of the Nation, he's the only guy that they didn't fire when the original Nation disbanded. It looks like this is going to be the guy that the stable's built around. And then along comes Rocky Maivia, and they put a mic in his hand. And it's like,
right.
oh, wait, no, this is the guy.
The eye roll promo, basically. It was like
Yes.
that was the moment where you're like, oh, keep your eye on him, man.
Yep.
and
He is
Ricky
something
Starks has
special.
had several of those already.
Yes, indeed.
uh
Yep.
Here's who I would like to see show up in other promotions. I think Harry Smith would do fantastic in Impact. Along
Yes.
with, I think Lindsay Dorado would do well there. I think Oni Lorcan would do there. Tucker Knight would be great in Impact. Like,
Tucker would be good. Yeah.
there's a handful of these guys who just kind of were shoved aside.
Mhm.
Um, Guys that I'd like to show up in AEW, Keith Lee, top of the
Oh,
list.
yeah.
Keith Lee,
Keith Lee and Kevin Owens are my 1 and 2. Although we know it won't with
I know
Owens.
Kevin Owens is happy, and I'm
And
glad that he made the decision he did, because
yes.
you don't want to just do it because it's out there.
Yes.
I do think Ricochet deserves to be let free and run wild in AEW, or at least have a fantastic Super Juniors return in New Japan.
Yes. I was going to say New Japan or Ricochet and AAA, letting him work with some of the guys that he worked with on Lucha Underground.
Akira Tozawa, please come home.
Yep.
Please come home.
Kushida.
Kushida, come home. Apollo Cruz, man, if this is
Oh,
what you
man.
want to do, that's cool.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. If you're
If that's
happy
what
where
you
you
want to
are,
do, cool.
but oh
I
my god,
personally would
Uha
love to
Nation
see.
back on the indies.
Oh, oh, yeah,
You think Jackson Riker and or I'm
no.
sorry, Gunner and Rockstar Spud are going to go back to Impact?
I could see it happening. Um,
I still
I
think that Shane
I am
Strickland should go to
curious.
MLW.
Oh
That's one
yeah,
of my big ones. Is I really want to see Shane Strickland in MLW.
I'm curious as to what's going to happen with EC3's kind of meta stable that he's had with this change of the narrative. Now that it's him,
Yes,
Killer Cross, and the Titan Adam Scher,
yes.
um, formerly Braun Strowman. I do have some.
Braun.
There's some uh out of the blue type of things I was thinking. I would love to see Game Changer Wrestling on Vice. I think that would be
Ooh.
a good network for them.
And then you
I
can
know
even do
that
a tie-in.
MLW is
Have
yeah,
Nick Gage just like hates being on Vice because of
yeah,
the dark side of the ring. Like
yeah.
he just
It's a good dynamic to
he
play.
hates everything about being on that network. Like what Heyman was trying to do with ECW on Sci-Fi
Right.
before WWE got its hands on it. But oh my god, like all I mentioned Shane Strickland going to MLW. All of Hit Row should go to MLW
Absolutely.
intact as a group.
Absolutely. Sign the entire organization.
Yeah.
Give them everyone. I'd like to see the Briscoes show up on like a GCW television series. I want to see, I want to see those guys all there and
Yeah.
just go all out.
Well, and let them. They have they're the last Ring of Honor World Tag Team Champions. They're the PWG World Tag Team Champions. They want the 3 big indie tag belts. They want to beat Black and King in GCW. I'm sorry, they're not the PWG champions anymore because what do they have? They have one of the other big indie tag titles.
Oh God,
Maybe it
I'm
is
blanking.
PWG. No, because
I think
Black and King are the PWG champions.
that's right.
But
True.
the Briscoes have 2 sets of belts
Wait,
right
no,
now.
they are the Briscoes, I believe, are GCW tag champions.
They are the GC. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I had it backwards that they
Yeah.
would be going for the PWG titles.
Oh no, I'm already thinking of that. That's insane.
Or
Here's what
they come to AEW.
In terms of the stable question, I'm gonna twist it. I'm gonna tell you which one I would break up right now. And that is the Hardy family
Hardy
office.
family office, not helping anybody.
Absolutely break them up. Come
Yep.
on. Like just for the sake of you need to. And this might be a bit of a bold one, but I honestly think like the Dark Order is probably going to dissolve next year.
I think they will. I think
Not
when
in any
Wyndham
sort of
shows up.
yeah, not in any sort of, and I don't think it's going to be in any sort of other way than just like we've gone as far as we can with this, so it's time for us to part ways, and like that'll be it.
Yep.
Because honestly, they've reached their peak being the support for Paige to be the champion now. And, I don't want them just floating around. You've got obviously the great tag team with Reynolds and
Silver.
Silver. And of course with Evil Uno and Stu Grayson. Everybody else can just break off into singles stuff. I mean, I want to see Preston Vance just killing it in the singles. Same with Alan Angels and the same with Colt. A tag team that I could see breaking up and being okay if they did, but still staying together in a way would be the Acclaimed, with Bowens taking the single run and Caster being his voice.
Yep.
I could
Let
see
Caster be the Leo Rush to his Bobby Lashley. Yeah.
I could see Bobby Fish eventually being like a coach player role to a team. Like I would love to Anthony Ogogo.
Oh, interesting.
That
do you
is what,
think? See, here's where you and I differ a bit. I don't think Ogogo lasts the year.
I don't either. Lately, I thought like earlier, I thought he'd be okay, and then I realized like, oh, he might not be the best person to keep around in the locker room. It turns out.
I don't think he's doing himself any favors. He's already part of a segment so disastrous they made fun of it on Cody's reality show.
Yeah.
that's your biggest claim to fame, and now your second biggest is Twitter beef against people who want nothing to do with you. It's not that they're like playing along for heat; they just want you to stop, and you keep going. It's just I don't think Ogogo is long for this world. I think he could truly benefit from somebody like that,
Mhm.
like Fish. But I don't I think AEW has soured on Ogogo enough to where when his contract expires, it will not be renewed.
Would you like to hear my dream stable?
I would. I would very much
In
like that.
AEW right now, I would love to see this form next year. I would like to see Brock Anderson, Brian Pillman Jr., Hook as a trio.
Okay. The new
And
generation.
yes, let him start with that, second gen thing
Mhm.
or next gen thing, but then cast it off and just be like, listen, because I would love to see, you have Hook and Brock getting like good with each other. Taz and Arn being like, you stay the hell away from those guys, and let them just be like, no, we're gonna do our own thing. Pillman just being, he's but it's gonna be a heel stable.
Yeah.
And you put I feel like as far as an enforcer goes, I don't know. I'd rather see just be a trio. I don't know what I would name them, but I just really do want to see those guys together. Um, I would love to see Luchasaurus Rex, the heel version of Luchasaurus.
That's when you're talking about tag teams you want to see break up in 22.
I could see
I
that happening.
love Jurassic Express. They've been one of my favorite acts since the first AEW show I ever saw. But I think it's time. Jungle Boy is not being helped anymore by his association with Luchasaurus and Marco. I think he's ready to take that next. He's been ready to
Oh
take that
yeah,
next step
absolutely.
as a singles division star. I think Jungle Boy should be the one to beat Cody for the TNT title.
Ooh, damn. I didn't think
That's
about that. That would be really good.
that's what I think is what should happen. I don't know if I don't know what the plan is, obviously, but if it was me, if I was Tony Khan and I wanted to make somebody by putting them over Cody, the smarmy heel-ish, face of the company, I'm giving it to Jungle Jack.
Jungle Jack Perry.
Yeah. I
Um,
think Jungle Boy should be the next TNT champion, and then use that whenever he does eventually lose it, to to an MJF or a Ricky Starks or whoever, have him then like it by the end of 2022, Jungle Boy should be at the same level that MJF and Darby and Sammy are at now, and he's just not based on the current booking.
I also do have a prediction that, and this will be my last prediction but it doesn't necessarily have to be my only one. But it's my biggest one will be that Jericho retires next year. I think that
Interesting.
he will decide to eventually have one last like good payoff match,
Hmm.
and then take the road of being a voice for AW again, because him and Excalibur actually make for a good team. Him and
Yes.
Shivani make for a good team.
Yep.
I don't think you necessarily. I do hope that eventually they do decide no more 3-man booth.
Yeah.
It's sometimes it's a little much,
Yes.
but yeah. And as far as to answer your question, Zach, there's only one manager that I want. There's only one. It's Pat Dooley.
Well, no, he's saying who would you want to manage if you were
Oh,
a manager?
it's
Who do
Pat Dooley.
you want to?
No,
Oh.
no. No, Pat and I are a package team. There's just no question. If I could though be a manager to anyone, man, I would love I think I could be a good voice for Brian Cage.
Yeah.
I would love to just be a voice for honestly for any talent that doesn't necessarily like to talk that much
Mhm.
or would be better off not talking as much. I don't know. I think that you don't necessarily have to have everything like the complete tool set all
The
the
five
time.
tool. Yeah.
Yeah. You can be, sometimes it can be it just depends on the person. I love managers for tag teams. I think that
Yes.
that's always fun. When you can be the, the Jim Cornette to a Rock and Roll Express,
Or
without being
Heavenly
as,
Bodies.
yeah,
Or
without
uh,
being Jim Cornette.
without having to be Jim Cornette. Yeah. Maybe more like Mr. Fuji with the Powers
Yeah,
of
maybe
Pain.
more Mr. Fuji.
Um,
Um, what about
so
you? Who'd you
I
who
don't think
who'd you
he
want?
needs the help, but here I am staying hydrated uh in in the honor of the official wrestler of Pro Wrestling Simulated in 2021, Don't Die Miles.
That's
I
true.
just think it would be awesome to hang out with Don't Die Miles on the road all the time. But he doesn't
Well,
need
you
my
never
help.
know,
He's
because
doing very well for himself.
and I will say this at the end of every year of a show for as long as we're doing this, but I feel that in the future, Pro Wrestling Simulated IRL will happen, and we will put
Yes.
on a legitimate live pro wrestling show
Yes, indeed.
at least once.
Yep.
And it will be just for a good cause and for
Yep.
good fun. Um, and if you want to keep supporting us, you can do that by following us at PW Simulated on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We are going to come back in the new year
Yes.
with our next 10 episodes that won't happen over the course of 6 months, we promise. It's just this has been a hell of a year for everybody.
It's the holidays, man.
And although we have been experimenting with different things in terms of production, and we are hoping to evolve the look of the show as well. This is definitely the longest episode we've ever done, but it's a special occasion.
Oh, I would manage. Ty Conti is a star on the rise. I think she, if not necessarily holding one of the women's titles by the end of the year,
she will be for sure.
Is a top tier contender for
Conti, take Conti.
I love that.
I will always sing it every time I heard it, and I can't get it out of my head.
Oh, hold on, Ty Conti. We messaged about this the other day. Leave Ty Conti the.
Yes.
Is it okay if I swear right now?
Yeah, it's the end of the year. Leave
Ty Conti the fuck alone. It is not your business.
Listen to Fuego del Sol at the end of Sammy's blog. Come on, guys. We're better than this.
Mike and I have both worked, taking it back to our Disney days. We have worked closely. We have made very close, lifelong friendship with very attractive women who, to an outside observer, it kind of looks like they may be dating. No, we're just close friends. It is possible. It is, in fact, encouraged to be friends with people who are unlike you, to people of opposite genders, of people of different sexual orientations, of people of different gender identities. You learn so much about the world by being friends with people who aren't like you, that Sammy Guevara and Ty Conti's friendship with each other is just that. It's friendship.
I'll go out on a limb here. Folks, if you like people, you like people.
Yes.
If you're friends with people, you're friends with people.
Yes.
And also, if you don't know those people in real life, it's none of your goddamn business.
None of your business. Leave
Cheers
them
to
alone. All right, let's leave all that crap in 2021 and move into a new year.
Shows up. We are excited for the future of this ever-going tournament. Who knows? In 3 years, the tournament may actually be done.
Maybe. Do we want to talk about what the first show of 2022 is going to include?
Let's look at that quick lineup, here. And then we will
real quick, and then we'll bounce out. Brian Johnson against Carl Fredericks. The Pope against Jesse Goddard, Carl Anderson against Atlantis Jr., the new AEW World Heavyweight Champion Hangman Adam Page against Gino Medina, Bobby Guns against Dr. Wagner Jr., the legend from Mexico, Shuji Ishikawa against Alan Five Angels, Tetsuya Naito against Robert Martyr, El Soberano Jr. against LA Knight, Day One NXT talent.
Day One NXT talent, of course.
Kyle O'Reilly, newly of All Elite Wrestling, against Eli Isom. And unfortunately, he's going to wrap up 2021 still as T-Bar against Francesco Akira, the great Italian wrestler who is making such a name for himself in All Japan. those are the 10 matches that are currently lined up for
It's
our
going to be a
first
great
show of
show.
2022.
And we hope that you join us wherever you're watching it on, be it Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch. Of course, you can always contact us if you have any information in regards to avatars that we may not have available
Yes.
to us at pro wrestling simulated at gmail.com. We're giving your attention to Pat the Stat Man. And we will hope to see you in the new year, tagging all of your favorite wrestlers as you see them show up on this tournament. And maybe we might even get the attention of the boys over at Pro Wrestling Illustrated to come and hang and tell us about this. But until then, I have been Mike. That has been
I'm still
Pat.
Pat.
And we are out of here until the new year. Have a wonderful time. Be safe. Be happy. And just enjoy. Remember, wrestling will be around for as long as we still have fun with it. And
right.
thankfully, this is the kind of stuff that we love to do. We will see you
right.
next time. And Happy New Year, Pat.
Happy New Year, Mike.
All right. Have a great
See you on
day,
the other
everybody.
side.
See ya.